Esta es una liderada Green Building Council. Es Juanita Álvarez, soy la gerente regional para las Américas del World GBC. Trabajo con los 15 consejos de construcción sostenible que hacen parte de nuestra región y estoy con ustedes y presentarles la agenda y los speakers internacionales que tendremos acompañándonos hablando de proyectos e iniciativas para edificaciones neto cero carbono. Vamos a con una breve presentación sobre qué es el BEA y daremos inicio a nuestras siguientes charlas con los speakers de hoy. Entonces, como bien saben, bueno, para comenzar, el favor a todos los participantes para que ustedes puedan ver las presentaciones en tamaño grande en sus pantallas, deben hacer doble clic en la imagen de la pantalla que ustedes están viendo, donde están para que lo puedan ver un poco más grande. Si hacen doble clic ahí, pues verán con mucho más tamaño. Ahora, entonces, bueno, tendremos una jornada con distintos speakers de diferentes partes de la región y del mundo. Les agradecemos a todos estos speakers por estar el día de hoy con nosotros en este taller regional para el programa BEA, el Building Efficiency Accelerator y el World GBC. Nuestra agenda del día de hoy va a empezar con la introducción que les mencionaba del programa BEA y lo que está trabajando el World GBC con sus consejos en nuestra región. Seguiremos con una presentación de Felipe Faría, el CEO del GBC Brasil. Seguiremos con Alonso Pero, gerente de financiamientos de la inmobiliaria 20, que nos hablará de los programas de vivienda social neto cero. Seguido por Mariano Lemansky, que nos hablará de las iniciativas que están liderando en el municipio de Balsanova. Y terminando, digamos, un primer módulo con Emma Hughes del USGBC, hablándonos del programa Lead Zero y esta plataforma y sistema de certificación. En ese momento haremos un break y seguiremos con las sesiones con César Ulises Triviño, quien nos hablará del camino de los edificios con cero emisiones de carbono, seguido por Guido Pettinelli, quien nos hablará de la iniciativa de 50 escuelas privadas y el compromiso de la Asociación Adventista por edificaciones también de cero emisiones, y seguiremos con Carlos Borges hablándonos de acciones para edificaciones sostenibles en Medellín, en Colombia, terminando con Dimitris hablándonos de Cooling as a Service y cómo esta plataforma está configurada para acelerar la transición de edificaciones neto cero carbono. Para terminar nuestra jornada tendremos un panel de discusión liderado por el BBC y con esto cerraremos nuestro día de hoy. Bueno, quiero presentarles entonces el programa BEA y presentarles un poco para quienes no conocen el World GBC. Nosotros somos una organización que lidera el movimiento de la construcción sostenible en el mundo. Somos una red de consejos de construcción sostenible como el Guatemala GC, donde tenemos a más de 70 consejos del mundo impulsando estos esfuerzos para lograr un entorno construido, sostenible para cualquier parte del mundo. Estamos divididos en 5 redes regionales y nuestro objetivo es transformar millones de vidas a través y involucrando a todos los actores de la cadena de la construcción. Dentro de nuestro trabajo como diferentes proyectos enfocados a distintas áreas, una de edificaciones saludables, sostenibles, que se llama Better Places for People, otro proyecto que se llama Advancing Net Zero, precisamente pues promueve cómo alcanzar compromisos, acciones y políticas para edificaciones netos carbono, y tenemos el programa de acción climática para ciudades apoyado por el Building Efficiency Accelerator, que es una iniciativa específica, digamos, del trabajo de nuestra región en las Américas. Lo que buscamos hacer con nuestros proyectos es poder ofrecer una línea integral de conocimiento, de información, de iniciativas, de manera que si ustedes pueden ver ahora, los primeros pasos con el Building Efficiency Accelerator buscan establecer una línea base de eficiencia energética en las ciudades para así poder impulsar una mayor ambición hacia los pasos de construcción hacia edificaciones neto cero carbono. El proyecto del programa BEA es un proyecto que cuenta con más de 45 aliados internacionales de sector público, sector privado y sector público, y contamos con el mayor número de representación de ciudades y estados que se han comprometido a establecer políticas o códigos hacia la edificación sostenible, hacia la eficiencia energética, donde tiene una segunda etapa en este proyecto que cuenta con proyectos demostrativos de la aplicación y la implementación de estas políticas, y como tercer paso se busca el desarrollo y la elaboración de que puedan medir, revisar y verificar la implementación de estos códigos, de manera que se pueda establecer una base de datos bien amplia que pueda servir como ejemplos de replicabilidad para que otros estados, ciudades, incluso países iniciativa y desarrollen sus propias políticas en torno a la eficiencia energética. Nosotros con la Red de las Américas y estamos trabajando muy fuertemente en Colombia, en México, en El Salvador, en Guatemala, en Costa Rica y también en Brasil, siendo nuestros Green Building Councils los líderes y como ese aliado estratégico y clave para lograr avanzar estas políticas. Estas son las organizaciones que les mencionaba que hacen parte de este gran pool de organizaciones que trabajan en pro de esta iniciativa, que hace parte además de un compromiso de Naciones Unidas y de la línea de trabajo de Sustainable Energy. Y todas estas organizaciones que ven ustedes acá, lo que buscan es poder generar modelos de compartir de mejores prácticas, de experiencias, para que la replicabilidad de la plataforma del BEA sea eficiente, pueda atender las necesidades de cada una de las ciudades o los estados que hacen parte del programa BEA, y así ofrecer apoyo técnico de conocimiento, de capacidades, de generación de conciencia en los mercados y pues trabajar de la mano con las ciudades para lograr los objetivos. Como pueden ver ustedes, esto es una alianza público-privada. Lo que busca es generar alianzas público-privadas que apoyen el trabajo que hace cada una de las ciudades y los estados. De esta manera, nosotros como Green Building Councils y con nuestros miembros, lo que hacemos es aportar en mesas de trabajo, en conocimiento técnico y específico que pueda respaldar la iniciativa y la voluntad política de lograr códigos, guías y políticas en pro de la eficiencia energética. Este es un proceso que, como les mencionaba, pues tiene 3 etapas principales y donde busca lograr una priorización de acción local, donde busca ofrecer herramientas y soluciones, oportunidades de financiación y colaboración internacional para lograr los distintos objetivos. Aquí hay distintos modelos, digamos, de participación y de involucramiento de las partes pues, que trabajan en este proyecto, y donde las ciudades y los aliados para cada una de las ciudades puede tener acceso a todo este conocimiento y todo este pool de profesionales y organizaciones para alcanzar los objetivos. Esto lo que logra hacer es robustecer esta plataforma para que se puedan lograr y alcanzar las metas de eficiencia energética de manera rápida, con la línea de trabajo de Sustainable Energy for All. La meta es poder duplicar para el 2030 el porcentaje de ahorro energético a nivel de ciudades, ¿cierto? Y poder tener unas metas a 2030 y 2050 donde logremos mitigar, digamos, este impacto que tenemos a través del uso apropiado de los recursos y pues no solo hablar de eficiencia energética, sino el tema que venimos a tratar hoy de edificaciones neto cero carbono. Ahora me permito presentarles a Felipe Faría, el CEO del Green Building Council de Brasil, quien nos hablará del programa de edificios públicos del estado de Paraná, de edificaciones neto cero carbono, y hablará de su primera fase del proyecto con 212 escuelas en 7 municipios. Les quiero recordar que en la plataforma ustedes tienen la opción de traducción simultánea. Esta presentación que sigue va a ser en inglés. Entonces, en el chat ustedes pueden ver que los organizadores les han enviado un link para que puedan dar clic ahí y llevarlos a la traducción. Felipe, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to join this regional webinar. And now I'll leave it to you. Please share your screen so that we can all see your presentation. Thank you very much. Felipe, just a minute.
Okay, now you can listen,
yeah,
right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Juanita, World Green Building Council, the Building Fish Accelerator, and a special thank you for my friends, my colleagues from Guatemala Green Building Council for this event organization. So I will share my screen. Let me see, just 1 minute. Juanita, can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so I will go for my I will go very straight to the point with this presentation. I think the idea is I will talk briefly about how have been going the advancing net zero energy building program here in Brazil, and then I will talk about this amazing project. I think that it's one of the most important projects that Green Building Council Brazil have already been involved with government, which is in the state of Paraná, is the Paraná Public Net Zero Energy Building Program. And today we will have like a kind of trilogy, because I will talk about this program that Juanita mentioned, that we are transforming 212 public buildings into net zero energy buildings from 7 different cities. And then I will mention how it's working. I will talk about the partnership. I will give some general numbers about those projects and the results. And then Mariano Lemansky will talk about the local perspective. He will mention about how this program has been working in the city of Balsa Nova. And he will share some amazing results regarding the energy efficiency, renewable energy production in that city, the impact in the city hall budget, but more than it, he will also mention about the Secretary of Education, because the majority of those buildings are public schools. And then we will have Guido Pettinelli about this Adventist education entity that is transforming 50 private schools into net zero energy building. We can mention that it would be like a collateral effect of this big program with the state government of Paraná. So, and why and what's the reason that we can right now in Brazil discuss and growing with net zero energy buildings, considering that we are finding finance and technical viability to operate net zero buildings here in Brazil? I think I think there is two main reasons. The first one is the technical depreciation. We used to say that the green building movement that we started in 2007, we lift the technical level in the market in general, and we gain a lot of maturity and experience when we talk about energy efficiency in buildings. And also we have some federal regulations that have been supporting the adoptions of renewable energy production generations in building, on-site or off-site. But the majority of our projects, almost all of them, are renewable energy production on-site. So when I talk about maturity and experience, in Brazil, for example, we are the 50th largest market for LEED in the world. So we have thousands of buildings registered and certified LEED. This movement started with corporate buildings. So we have a lot of corporate buildings, and it's very clear for this segment, corporate buildings. We have several differentiations and gains in terms of economic benefits. And then this movement starts to be more diversified. So we have corporate building, also industry plant, logistics center, hotels, hospitals, museums, the sport venues. And now even within the residential sector, with our, we created this GBC Casa certification here in Brazil, and we also have projects in the residential market. So it's a lot of diversification in terms of typologies. But one point that also show not only experience, but also maturity is that most of the recent we have an unbelievable case of success. We have, for example, LEED certification building that achieved the platinum level of the certification without any additional construction costs. And why? How it's impossible? It's because we increase the technical level in terms of service for energy efficiency. We have very high-tech engineering and architecture firms working on energy efficiency in building, a lot of investment in energy simulations, commissioning, building information modeling. So the sector have a big upgrade if we consider the advance of this green building movement that started in 2007. And additional to this scenario that make easier to invest in renewable energy generation on site, one of the federal regulations that we would like to mention is the one that give authorizations for the consumers to use the net metering system and compensate any excess of energy. It means that here in Brazil now you can generate your renewable energy on the roof of your home, or from your building, and connect the system directly with the energy grids. So you don't need to invest in energy storage and additional equipment. So it makes a little bit cheaper the investment to invest to generate renewable energy on sites. So it's like a different scenarios that make us possible to find the finance and technical viability to produce to have net zero energy building in Brazil. And we love when we talk about the net zero, we all talk about the certification of performance. So because you need to be very efficiency in order to find the finance and technical viability. Actually, it's the energy efficiency that pays for the renewable energy generation. Then you also need to take care about the energy performance. So you need to optimize the energy management during the operations of that building, generate the renewable energy, and also the occupants need to have a certain kind of engagement in order. So we cover all the cycle of energy in a building. And then we started with some private projects. We have right now more than 50 projects, and until we sign this memorandum of understanding with the state government of Paraná. So we sign a memorandum of understanding with the government of Paraná, which is a state in south of Brazil, creating a net zero energy program, initially for public schools, but we are also include other kind of public buildings. In the first phase, we already have 212 buildings from 7 different cities that we are transforming into net zero energy building. In terms of this partnership, so we have like the government, state government, and the Paraná Cidade, which is part of the Secretary of Urban Plan of the state government of Paraná. They choose the cities that we will work on. They sign a contract defining the municipality's duties. The municipality that wish to participate in this program, they sign a contract with Paraná Cidade, define some duties, some obligations. They also assist in the bidding criteria preparation, because until the end of the year, they will bid the executions of those projects, and they are also dealing with enforcement to follow each step of the municipality during the bidding process, and also after that during the execution of the project. Fomento Paraná, which is like the local government bank for development, and they granted part of the finance, the amount of finance for the project execution. And then we have Green Building Council Brazil and Instituto Puranã. We donate all the projects for the city halls, but not any. It's very special projects. So we have a Pettinelli, which also is the author of all those projects. Pettinelli Engineering, it's like they not only mentor, but also we can define as one of the sponsor of this amazing project. We are talking about 212 buildings from those 7 municipalities. The majority are public school, but in Balsa Nova, and Mariano will resume the result of Balsa Nova, we also have the City Hall, the Chamber of Deputy, Park, Gymnasium, Health Unity, the landfill, the public landfill of the city, and also all the public lighting system of the city. It's like the mayor do not need, in the next couple of years, they don't need to pay energy bill anymore. So, but we are talking about Pettinelli, they put more than 20 engineers to visit all those buildings. They checked more than 111,000 of equipments in terms of lighting, HVAC, refrigerator, any kind of equipment that consume energy in those buildings. And then they have the expertise in terms of energy simulations, energy diagnostic, measure and verification, everything following the most strict standard that we have for those activities. With those projects in hands, we register actually one project for city. We register, and there is another regulation in Brazil. It's like it's a program that obliges that all energy utility companies, they need to invest 0.5% of its net operating revenue in energy efficiency projects. So, and then we register for the city hall. We donate the project for the city hall, and we register for the public call from the local utility company, and we granted with that. Actually, the project was excellent because we have they bid more than 100 million reais, more than 90 projects were approved, but our projects were approved in the first position, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, sixth. So the first position of the city occupied with this amazing project, and then we granted 60% of the amount of money that we need to execute the project. Here is the graph show the results. So the first column you have like the total amounts necessary for execution, which is like $10 million. The second column, it's the non-refunded grants that we got from the local utility company, and then you have the third column, the amount of money that the city hall now signed the contract with this local bank, the Fomento Paraná, to complete the 40% of the total amount that we need to execute 100% of the project. And then you have the savings per year and the payback. The payback less than 3 years. So imagine for the city hall that we donate this project for them. We help them to grant 60% of the total amount to execute the project. And then you have like the payback. The payback is 2 years, but the contract that they sign with the bank have a 2 year of grace period. So the cash flow for them is positive since the first year of this program. So we are transforming 212 public buildings into net zero energy building. We are renovating all the schools. The new lighting project also follow the minimal criteria of lighting comfort. So but more important than it, you have the energy generation, but the energy efficiency, because it's the energy efficiency that pay for renewable energy generation. And with this project, the total of the energy efficiency that we reduced was 46% in terms of light reduction, and the HVAC 35%. So in terms of Green Building Council, it was like an Institute Purunã. It was like helping with around $330,000. We released $10 million in energy retrofit, renewable energy generation, and then we transform all those buildings in net zero energy building. And more important than it is that more than 100,000 children will study in a net zero energy building in a couple of years, as soon as we conclude the execution. So this is the project that I would like to share. This memorandum of understanding, it's on Monday. We will have a meeting with the state government of Paraná. He will to talk about that, and also the next steps, because not only the state government, also the Secretary of Urban Plan, they are very, very inspired by this project, and they wanted to do more for the next coming years. And then we are talking with some partners in order to see how we can approve more cities and more cities for 2021. So this is the message and the project that we would like to share. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm pretty sure that we will love to hear Mariano and Guido to complete the conversation about this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felipe, for your presentation and for the insightful information that you just shared with all of us. Now I'm going to ask Alonso Pedrero, Gerente de Financiamientos Inmobiliaria 20, to start his presentation. I'm going to switch to Spanish. Como saben, tienen la opción de traducción. Y bueno, vamos a seguir, por favor, entonces, con el programa de vivienda social. Alonso, muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros el día de hoy y te cedo la palabra.
Gracias, Juanita. Muy buenos días. Gracias al World Green Building Council por la oportunidad de estar aquí y ponernos enfrente de su audiencia. Voy a platicar de la vivienda eficiente de energía y agua de 20, su historia, a dónde vamos y cómo lo estamos haciendo. Voy a empezar primero con el modelo. Para poder entender el impacto que la vivienda de eficiencia energética y de agua tiene, es importante entender antes el modelo de negocio. Hay dos partes claves en nuestro modelo. Primero, no solo construimos casas, construimos comunidades. Y segundo, en nuestro modelo identificamos a los stakeholders clave que permiten que este ciclo de construcción de la casa y de crecimiento del modelo de negocios se dé. Si pueden ver la pantalla, del lado izquierdo abajo, voy a empezar con las familias. Son la parte fundamental en nuestro modelo. No hay que olvidar que la casa es el principal activo que la mayoría de las familias va a tener. Hay que construirlas con calidad, hay que hacerlas eficientes, hay que darles infraestructura social. Actualmente, las comunidades 20 tienen parques, tienen áreas para correr, áreas de desarrollo para niños, para hacer ejercicio. Eso no es fácil obtener en los segmentos medio y medio bajo. Adicionalmente, nuestras casas y nuestras comunidades están diseñadas en forma de clústeres para aumentar la seguridad que hay en ellos. Eso siempre es bueno para las familias. Esto me lleva al siguiente stakeholder, que es el gobierno y la autoridad, el municipio. Dentro de nuestras comunidades y desarrollos, impactamos de manera positiva en infraestructura, en varios tipos de infraestructura. Empezamos con educación. Hemos construido más de 750 aulas en 28 escuelas que hemos donado a las autoridades educativas de las comunidades. Hemos construido 92 kilómetros de caminos y carreteras, lo cual permite un mejor acceso y comunicación. Hemos construido 7 clínicas, 2 hospitales, lo cual aumenta el acceso a la infraestructura de salud. Hemos construido 9 plantas de tratamiento de agua, que también donamos a los municipios. Todo esto ayuda, obviamente, al mantener la calidad de los desarrollos 20, pero adicionalmente ayuda al municipio. Siempre que hay una comunidad 20 en una región, hay un win-win para ambas partes. A los gobiernos les gusta tener este tipo de desarrollos porque precisamente permite una mejor calidad de vida. El siguiente stakeholder arriba a la derecha son los bancos, los proveedores de capital. Cuando tú tienes una familia que está contenta con su casa, que tiene áreas para desarrollarse, áreas para jugar, áreas para hacer deporte, cuando tienes acceso a la educación, cuando tienes acceso a servicios médicos, porque se han desarrollado en conjunto con las comunidades, se han donado a los gobiernos y a las autoridades, a las familias les gusta. Las personas que piden una hipoteca no tienen incentivo para dejar de pagarla. Al contrario, quieren mantener esta casa, mantienen su valor, hay unas hipotecas y eso a los bancos los hace muy felices. Los bancos entonces permiten préstamos para poder continuar desarrollando este tipo de comunidades y mantener el crecimiento en este ciclo del modelo de negocio 20, que es un ciclo, al fin y al cabo, un modelo de valor compartido. Al mismo tiempo, cuando una familia está contenta con su casa, normalmente le dice a sus amigos y a su familia, esto es free advertising. Podemos decir que una parte importante en el negocio de 20 es que los clientes, el 50% de los clientes son referenciados por otros clientes y adicionalmente utilizan también ya la tecnología para poder llevar a cabo la adquisición de su casa, que esa es una tendencia que hemos estado viendo últimamente, que es notoria en el segmento de vivienda. Lo que esto ha permitido es que nuestros accionistas y los empleados del INTE estén contentos. Hemos tenido un desempeño financiero notable, un retorno en capital del 21% en los últimos 10 años. Hemos tenido un desempeño de la acción que ha superado hasta ahorita el índice de la bolsa mexicana y esto nos ha podido permitir continuar replicando nuestro modelo de negocio, lo cual creemos tiene un impacto importante en la sociedad. Voy al siguiente. Desarrollándose. De hecho, 20 empezó en 2001. Nosotros vendimos la primera casa en 2003. Entonces, ya tenemos 17 años purificando, depurando, fortaleciendo y evolucionando este modelo de negocio. Cuando empezamos no era fácil. Siempre hemos tenido una visión de innovación. De hecho, lo primero que hicimos fue en 2005. No sé si se acuerdan en 2005, pero en ese entonces no había 4G. No teníamos Wi-Fi accesible. El iPhone, de hecho, salió en 2007 en Estados Unidos. En ese entonces era difícil tener acceso al Internet. Era mucho más difícil para un segmento específico de la población tener acceso a la información. 20 tuvo alianzas importantes para desarrollar lo que llamamos la hipoteca digital. Los primeros desarrollos de 20 ya tenían la capacidad de Internet y se les entregaba a la casa con una computadora, disminuyendo de esa manera el gap tecnológico para las familias del segmento medio y medio bajo. Esto tuvo un impacto importante. Participamos en varios premios donde fuimos reconocidos por el desarrollo de vivienda que hacíamos con enfoque en tecnología. Adicionalmente, también estuvimos trabajando desde el inicio en temas de sostenibilidad, que las casas fueran eficientemente energéticas, fueran eficientes en temas de energía y en temas de agua. En 2009, Real Toledo gana el primer premio nacional por temas de sostenibilidad. En 2010, Real Ibiza también recibe ese galardón. Y así es como empezamos nuestro desarrollo de la vivienda eficiente, tanto en energía como en agua. Es importante mencionar que en 2012 fuimos la primera viviendera en tener el certificado del IFC, el Edge Certificate. Esto fue un parteaguas, fuimos la primera viviendera en México y no nos hemos detenido desde ese momento. Adicionalmente, también fuimos la primera viviendera en Latinoamérica en emitir el bono sostenible. Ya es complicado poder tener un crédito puente de 24 meses para poder ya llevar a cabo la construcción. Así que el trabajo que se tuvo que hacer para poder obtener financiación, emitir el primer bono sostenible para una vivendera a 5 años, Bullet, fue realmente un trabajo del equipo de 20. En 2019, de hecho, este modelo fue galardonado en la revista Fortune, en su lista de Change the World, en 2019, un logro que creemos ha sido importante como reconocimiento de lo que se ha logrado hasta el momento. Por el siguiente. Entonces, este proceso que hemos tenido, este modelo de valor compartido que hemos desarrollado, se traduce al día de hoy en 3.916 viviendas Edge. De hecho, por el número de viviendas certificadas, Vinte es hoy el principal desarrollador a nivel global con la certificación Edge. Esto representa más de 2.400 toneladas de emisión de gas invernadero disminuido. Hemos tenido más de 212.000 metros cúbicos de agua ahorrados. Hemos impactado a más de 13.000 personas con estos modelos de casa en 11 comunidades Vinte. Y lo más importante, somos también los primeros en recibir el certificado Edge Advance en México en 147 de nuestras viviendas. Como saben, el certificado Edge representa un ahorro del 20% en agua, energía y energía incorporada en materiales. El Edge Advance es el doble de eso, un 40%. Y esto lo estamos haciendo no solo para las casas, sino también para poder ponerlo al alcance del segmento medio y medio bajo de México, para que estas familias puedan tener un acceso y un ahorro en su vivienda en temas de consumo de energía. El otro desarrollo que hemos hecho en temas de sostenibilidad ha sido la casa Cero Energía. Todo lo que hemos platicado hasta ahorita de las casas sostenibles se han materializado en lo que llamamos la casa híbrida. ¿Qué es la casa híbrida? Lo primero es, no tiene gas. Es la primera casa asequible que no utiliza ningún tipo de gas, ya sea gas natural o gas LP. Esto por varias razones, pero la principal, el gas es uno de los principales contaminantes y expone a peligros innecesarios a las familias. Cuando reemplazamos la infraestructura de gas por electricidad y energía solar, estamos disminuyendo el riesgo de nuestras familias y estamos haciéndola más eficiente, disminuyendo en media tonelada al año por casa y ahorrando en el consumo de energía de las familias. Esto se ha medido y se ha producido en ahorros importantes, en especial para esos segmentos, de más de $240 al año, lo cual es un logro también para nosotros porque estamos dando este beneficio a las familias. Los modelos que tenemos hasta ahorita han sido apoyados por el IFC, por KfW de Alemania, por el Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, por Proparco, y nosotros dependemos y estamos muy agradecidos de tener este apoyo de estas agencias multilaterales que nos han permitido continuar desarrollando este modelo y continuar fortaleciendo la vivienda sostenible. Al día de hoy ya nos hemos comprometido con 2.000 viviendas adicionales Edge que esperamos desarrollar dentro de los próximos años. Adicionalmente, también tenemos que mencionar que contamos con el apoyo de las entidades de vivienda gubernamentales de México, el Infonavit, Sociedad Hipotecaria Federal, donde ellos, a través de los créditos que también otorgan a los derechohabientes les permiten tener acceso a estas viviendas sostenibles, que tienen un impacto tanto en temas de energía como en temas de agua, y que permitan a la familia mantener el más importante activo de todos, su casa. Creo que con esto termino. Muchísimas gracias por haberme escuchado. Quedo pendiente.
Alonso, muchísimas gracias por tu presentación y por toda la información que nos has compartido de esta iniciativa y proyecto. Vamos ahora a continuar. Con un breve video de nuestro aliado regional Johnson Controls, para luego seguir con las siguientes sesiones.
3, 2, 1, liftoff.
There are two kinds of history. First, the big stuff, the events that change the world. Then there are the things that change your world, both the things we celebrate and the smaller, no less significant moments in our lives. When new ideas take root, new relationships begin, and new horizons open up. What do all these things have in common? It's the part we often forget, the places and spaces that are the backdrops to the biggest moments in our lives, and the people behind the scenes who make it possible. Each of them driven by a mission, dedicated to do more for the people they serve. At Johnson Controls, we've always known that these places and spaces are far more than backdrops. They set the scene. They keep us comfortable, safe, and secure. They can make us more productive and efficient. But they do even more, too, furthering our ambitions and shaping all kinds of outcomes. They are a springboard for human progress. It's not an exaggeration to say they can transform our lives. We've always believed they should help advance humanity in all our endeavors. That belief was there in the inventions that form the very origins of our business. It was there in countless building operation systems spanning the decades, each more advanced than the last. And today, it's there in the schools where we work for better learning outcomes, the hospitals where we transform patient experiences, the data centers we make more efficient and secure, the sporting venues and airports where we give people better, safer experiences, the labs we make smarter, places where tomorrow's groundbreaking and life-saving innovations are being created, and in all the places we make more sustainable for the good of humanity and the planet. We haven't just stayed true to our purpose for over 130 years. We have expanded that purpose in mind-blowing ways, with buildings that support, enhance, and elevate lives all over the world, leading us into a new digital era that promises to be the most thrilling in all our history. Johnson Controls, the power behind your mission.
Ignition sequence.
Agradecemos a nuestro aliado regional, Johnson Controls, que siempre ha apoyado todo el trabajo de la Red de las Américas y particularmente este proyecto de acción climáticas para ciudades apoyado por el BEA. Ahora vamos a continuar con la presentación de Mariano Lemansky, que nos continuará hablando de las experiencias en Brasil, como Felipe bien mencionaba, complementando la información de lo que se ha hablado en este inicio de la mañana. Mariano es el chairman of Brunel Institute. Mariano, please, thank you for joining us, and you can share now your screen and presentation.
I would like to thank you. I'm pretty happy today. Okay.
Now we can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Just a moment, okay. Are you seeing that?
No, we can't see your presentation yet.
Let me see. Okay.
Okay, now we can see the screen.
Where is it? I don't know.
Now you just have to open your PowerPoint. Oh,
No, this is PowerPoint. It's here, so.
you have to share your screen again.
Mariano, depois de você clicar no PowerPoint. É isso, agora vai lá no PowerPoint. Opa.
Peraí. Vou começar de novo. Vou aqui, vou no PowerPoint.
Compartilha e depois vai no PowerPoint.
Tá. Ok.
Agora vai no PowerPoint. Aí. Pronto.
Perfect. Yes.
So, hello there, sorry about that.
Aí, Mariano, tem que ir lá de novo. Vai lá no PowerPoint.
Oh my God. All right there?
Não. Agora sim, isso, agora sim. Aí. Aí fica aí na tela. Você vai ficar enxergando.
Okay, I'm ready, right? So, how a small Brazilian town is taking the lead in climate action. I can explain that I am Mariano Lemansky, the chairman, and it all started when my mother met my father, and then I got here. So just kidding, but my dad was an entrepreneur, a very well-succeeded entrepreneur, and he's got this place here. This property is in Balsa Nova, the municipality of Balsa Nova, and we have this property like a farm. When we raise cattle, we have horse breeding, and I am passionate for horses. So one day I was riding my horses here, and I was kind of depressed, thinking about how to preserve this. How can I preserve all of this nature, all of this beauty? And I kept thinking, and then I thought, sustainable development, that's the point, and tourism, that's the words that shake my head. So I thought I can sell some horses, and then I have money to make an institute, and the institute will work to this sustainable development. Okay. This is our headquarters, and it shows how we're gonna be seen by the others. Simplicity and the beauty of simplicity, you know. Okay. Here is my angels, and they are the soldiers. They are in front of it all, and we choose 3 drivers that the institute what the institute is going to focus. One of them was education, obviously. The second was the skills, get the skills for the youth, and the third is the entrepreneurship, how to increase that. Well, we started to work here in Bossa Nova. Bossa Nova, it's a city with a population 13,000 and people. In Paraná, it's quite near Curitiba, which is the capital of Paraná, and Bossa Nova is called Bossa Nova because here it's quite near the Iguaçu River. You may hear about Foz do Iguaçu. It's a tourist place here in Paraná. Well, the river begins quite near Bossa Nova, and then it's called Bossa Nova. So it's our land. That's the landscape that we want to save. This landscape, it's only 30 miles from Curitiba. It's incredible. You can go by biking. So we thought about the sustainable tourism and how to develop this community and achieve the goals. Well, strengthening basic education, giving them skills and income generation, and helping the entrepreneurs to have their business here. So if you want to have some more information, you can have this on the site, Instituto Puruna. Puruna, it's an Indian word. It all has to be with nature, right? So
No.
Nothing. All right.
Can you give us a minute, because I'm seeing on the chat box that we are having some audio problems.
Okay.
Just give us a second. Can you try to speak again? And I think that we can hear your keyboard. So if you can move with your mouse, the presentation and the slides, I think that would be best.
Juanita, I can the Mariano presentation if necessary. I have here in my computer.
The main part is the numbers, okay? You can.
Mariano, how do you prefer? Do you want to show your presentation, or Felipe can show it for you?
I think you don't see it. You can see it, or it's quite bad.
We can see it, but we're having some audio issues when you try to move the slides.
All right, all right. So I'll try to go slowly, okay?
Okay, then Felipe, perhaps we can continue with your screen, and Mariano will go with the presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
So, can you see my? Okay, I will share my screen. Just 1 minute. Okay, can you see, Maria?
Now we can see the screen.
Yeah, that's the point. That's where I stopped.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Continue, please.
So this is the point that we got here, the net zero energy, and we thought that the best example that we could give is to help the public sector to achieve these goals. So we started to study all the problem and how could we get there, and how was the size or how big was the problem. And we discovered that 14% of the use of the electricity was for buildings, and 86% was street lighting. So this is, let's say, public responsible. So go on, please. Then we have this study and we analyze the map of the Bossa Nova because it's a rural region, agricultural, and we have the center. It's very spread, the city, you know, very spread. So we got this study and we noticed that could be very simple to do that. Only with efficiency, having efficiency, and then with a little bit of investments, we could do better, and the numbers will show it. So please go on. Here is the point where the light poles are, right? And the points that we need to change, all right? So go on. We use on-site generation and off-site generation. There are 28 existing buildings retrofitted that we can use, and it represents 12%. All right? Go on, please. And here is the number that you want to see. Only with energy efficiency, we could have 60% of increase, in net zero energy, not using, only using renewable energy. And then when we got this efficiency, we used that photovoltaic panels, and we got this, how could I say, this result, this incredible result here. And go on, please, Felipe. Here, and what it represents that we changed 3,000 lamps and reduction of 60% of energy use, 500 kilowatts of photovoltaic panels, 100% net zero energy surplus. That's incredible, and 700 megawatts annual energy generation. So we got this number, 255 tons CEO equivalent at the end. Let's go on. So here's the main point. How? With a little bit of money, you can see it's so cheap to make a revolution. The total investment is not even $1 million. We have this non-refundable P grant there where institutes are involved. The investment from municipality that was only $300, and the annual savings is amazing, $150,000 per year. The return on investment is 45%, and the simple payback period 2.1 years. It's so amazing. I saw that and I said, really? So why? What it means? It means that we can invest in education, in the youth, for example, to show the politics that we can save money doing this little investment and giving the students, for example, annually 500 reals in savings to invest on their education. Go on. It means a lot for us. It means that the municipality could buy this pandemic like 1,500 tablets, or contract 19 teachers to additional teachers. It's amazing. So the problem here in education is not money, you see. It's about economic development, and I think the point is sustainable tourism generates money, and money everybody understands. I think it's like that. So we could give them money with sustainable development and exploring this. So sorry about my English, sorry about this presentation, but I think we're making a very good work here, a very well job here. Everything is going so far, well so far. And here is San Luis Puruna, our simple home. And I'm here to invite you to come and see all these changes, because when I talk in English, I cannot do that as well. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Mariano, very much for your presentation and for the examples that you just showed on how the savings that you can make on energy efficiency can translate into other benefits for the people, for the community, and for everyone. Thank you very much. We'll continue.
Thank you.
We'll continue our sessions of today. And in this opportunity, I want to invite Emma Hughes, Project Manager for LEAD and the USGBC. And she's going to talk about LEAD Zero, the program of LEAD Zero. Les recuerdo a todos que tienen la opción de traducción simultánea si lo necesitan. En el chat box está el link para poder acceder. Y si tienen preguntas, los invito a que utilicen el chat para dejarnos todas las preguntas. Pues después de la presentación tenemos unos minutos para contestar cualquier inquietud que puedan tener. Muchas gracias. Emma, please continue, and you can share now your presentation.
Thank you, Juanita. Can you see my presentation okay?
Yes, we can see it perfect.
Awesome. And thanks everyone so much for the opportunity to present as part of this exciting event. So on today's session, I'm going to discuss the U.S. Green Building Council's newest certification program, LEAD Zero. I work on the LEAD technical development team at the U.S. Green Building Council, and I support the development of the LEED rating systems as well as the LEAD Zero certification. My team collaborates with networks of green building and industry professionals who volunteer to develop and refine the LEED rating system. So during my presentation today, I'm going to cover the LEAD Zero program criteria, the certification process, and as time permits, I will also share a few certified project case studies. Just as background, at USGBC, our mission is to transform the way that buildings and communities are designed, built, and operated to enable a healthy and prosperous environment that improves the quality of life. In short, we believe that better buildings equals better lives. And our most successful tool for market transformation to date has been and continues to be the LEED Green Building Rating System. We continuously update LEED as new technologies emerge and as standard design, construction, and operational practices improve. This means that a LEED Platinum certified project in 2020 is going to be a higher performing project than a LEED Platinum project that's certified in 2008. LEED is a global rating system. It's used in more than 170 countries around the world, including some really iconic buildings. And as I mentioned, LEED Zero is USGBC's newest certification program. This was launched in 2018. It is intended as a complement to a holistic LEED certification. So what we're aiming to do with LEED Zero is define and recognize leadership and to inspire greater action and achievement of net zero goals during building operations. Before I touch on the program criteria, I just wanted to highlight that we have seen recent growth in net zero energy buildings in the United States as tracked by the New Buildings Institute. So last year, NBI released this Getting to Zero Buildings database, which is an interactive tool for tracking zero energy commercial and multifamily buildings across North America. I really like this tool because it shows how the diversity of building types and climate zones are achieving zero energy. And it also shows the work that's being done to advance net zero buildings in today's market. There is a strong nexus or a strong synergy between LEED and net zero energy. And that's shown by the fact that about 2/3 or 65% of the buildings included in this database are also LEED registered or certified. So in trying to develop a net zero certification program, USGBC really recognized an opportunity to help shape this growth and better support, reward green buildings that are operating at net zero. So you will see an important distinction in the database highlighted here between emerging and verified net zero buildings. So emerging projects are those that have a stated goal of achieving zero energy, but have not yet demonstrated achievement of that goal. Verified projects are, of course, those buildings with greatly reduced energy loads such that over the course of a year, 100% or more of their energy use is met with renewable energy generation. This distinction between verified and emerging zero energy buildings is an important one, and I think it helps underscore the importance of third-party verification. So LEED Zero and other certifications really help owners easily communicate their building's performance and lend credibility to zero energy claims in the marketplace. So as part of our program, we're offering 4 distinct certifications. These are all focused on operational building performance. So they serve to verify the achievement of net zero goals over the last 12 months of building operation. There are 2 minimum program requirements for your project to participate in LEED Zero. The first is you need to be able to provide 12 months or 365 consecutive days of operating data, depending on the certification that you're pursuing. And you're going to provide this performance data via the ARC performance platform, which I'll talk a little bit more about later on in my presentation. The other minimum program requirement is that the project must have previously certified under a LEED building design and construction or operations and maintenance rating system. For all certifications, projects are going to enter their, again, resource consumption data into ARC. And ARC is an independent organization that maintains a sustainability performance platform that all projects can use to benchmark their consumption of resources. So regardless of whether you're pursuing LEED or not, you're able to access the ARC tool and start sharing data and understand how you compare to other similar buildings. So now I'll touch on the requirements of each of these certifications very briefly, and I encourage you to review the LEED Zero program guide, which is available on the USGBC website for more information about each of these certifications. So starting with LEED Zero Carbon, this recognizes buildings that are operating with net zero carbon emissions over the course of the past year. Here we have the carbon balance, which looks at the balance of total carbon emitted to total carbon avoided. And when we talk about total carbon emitted, we are looking at emissions from building energy consumption as well as emissions from occupant transportation. Occupant transportation can account for as much operational carbon emissions as building energy use in some projects, so we thought it was important to recognize that in a LEED Zero certification. In order to calculate emissions from occupant transportation, projects are going to administer a transportation survey to their occupants to understand how individuals are getting to and from the building and the distance that they're traveling to get there. And then the ARC platform, again, is going to calculate emissions from occupant transportation based on the responses to this transportation survey. The Lead Zero Carbon team must administer at least one occupant transportation survey during the 365-day performance period. When we talk about carbon avoided, here this means on-site renewable energy generation, off-site renewable energy procurement, and if necessary, as a last resort, the purchase of carbon offsets. Lead Zero Energy certification is up next, and this recognizes buildings that achieve a source energy use balance of 0 for the past year. Here we're looking at the balance of total energy delivered to total non-renewable energy displaced. And you'll notice that we are using a source energy metric for this calculation, encouraging project teams to consider the impacts of their energy usage beyond the LEED project boundary. So similar to Lead Zero Carbon, when we look at the Lead Zero energy balance, total energy delivered to the project is accounted for. On the non-renewable energy displaced side of the equation, we are looking at, again, renewable energy that is generated and used on site, renewable energy that is generated on site and perhaps exported back to the grid, as well as renewable energy that is procured from an off-site generating asset. The Lead Zero program guide contains a lot of specific examples for how these calculations are done in practice, so I would encourage you to review that to better understand the concepts that I'm explaining. For both Lead Zero Energy and Lead Zero Carbon, we want project teams to achieve a source energy balance of 0 by maximizing efficiency, again, implementing on-site renewable generation as much as possible, and then if necessary, procuring renewable energy off-site. We, USGBC, through our LEED development work, has developed a hierarchy of renewable energy procurement, and this intends to help guide project team decision-making around renewable energy investments. So again, after prioritizing energy efficiency and seeking to reduce demand as much as possible, the first priority for renewables procurement is on-site generation, because we know the project team is directly responsible for bringing that new resource online. If on-site generation isn't feasible, teams can look at local or community renewable energy procurement. If local, or if a community solar agreement or similar arrangement is not available, teams can consider purchasing renewable energy from new generating assets located off-site. Ideally, LEED project teams or all project teams are investing in new renewable energy generating resources, helping to increase market demand for those and bring more renewable generating assets online. The last on this hierarchy is the purchase of unbundled renewable energy certificates, also known as energy attribute certificates. While this is typically least impactful in terms of generating new renewable resources, we recognize that this might be the only way that a number of project teams are able to purchase renewable energy from an off-site source. So they're still included in the hierarchy, and they still represent a viable option for the procurement of renewable energy. Last on this hierarchy, I've included carbon offsets, but it's important to note that carbon offsets are not a form of renewable energy. They are a different instrument than renewable energy certificates. I've only included carbon offsets here in parentheses because, again, they are a viable last resort strategy for projects that are pursuing LEED Zero Carbon certification. Moving on to look at LEED Zero Water, this recognizes buildings that achieve a potable water use balance of 0 for the past year. Here we're looking at total potable water consumed that is offset by total alternative water used and water returned to its original source. On this slide, I have the zero water balance that gives you a better sense of what we mean when we say alternative water sources and water returned to its original source. When we talk about water returned to its original source, what we really mean is water that is collected from building systems such as green infrastructure or on-site treated wastewater and returned or infiltrated to the local aquifer. This certification really intends to reward innovative approaches to restoring water quality and quantity. So building on our minimum requirements for water efficiency in our core LEED rating systems, LEED Zero anticipates recognizing projects that are implementing strategies like gray water reuse, green infrastructure, and on-site water treatment and reuse. Lastly, we have the LEED Zero Waste certification, which recognizes buildings that achieve TRUE's zero waste certification at the platinum level, and TRUE stands for Total Resource Use and Efficiency. TRUE is the most comprehensive zero waste certification available in the market, and for LEED Zero, we wanted to recognize that and encourage more TRUE program participation. This program also requires ongoing performance tracking and reporting, which aligns really well with our LEED Zero framework. TRUE champions a zero waste economy. It focuses on closing the loop and eliminating waste at the source. The rating system, it's structured really similarly to LEED, and it provides a framework for project teams to look up their supply chain and identify opportunities to eliminate materials and waste at the source before, again, exploring opportunities to reuse, repair, and remanufacture projects. So that was a really quick overview of the LEED Zero program criteria. As I mentioned, more information is available on our website, especially included in the LEED Zero program guide. Here is the certification process for LEED Zero. It comprises 5 simple steps. To register, simply email leedzero@usgbc.org, and our customer service team will provide instructions for project registration and helping you get your project set up for reporting in the ARC platform. The LEED Zero documentation submission occurs in ARC, and the documentation requirements for each certification are outlined in the LEED Zero program guide. After all documentation is uploaded and has been reviewed by GBCI, the project team can announce certification. The USGBC's marketing team is ready to help projects that have achieved LEED Zero certification, to help them tell their stories, celebrate their successes, and inspire other projects to aspire to this sustainability performance. And then, as I mentioned previously, all projects are going to use the ARC benchmarking platform to share their performance data, utility bills, and supporting documents. This is just a screenshot of the energy input meters. LEED Zero carbon projects, in addition to sharing their energy consumption data, will use ARC to administer the occupant transportation survey. And as I mentioned, ARC is free for all projects to use, regardless if you're pursuing LEED. I know I'm running out of time here, but there's just a few successful projects that I wanted to highlight, and I will encourage you to look at the USGBC website for more information. We have a lot of interesting case studies about these LEED Zero certified projects where you can learn more. Our first LEED Zero project in the world was a LEED Zero energy project, the Petinelli headquarters in Curitiba, Brazil, and I know we'll be hearing from Guido later today. So he's happy to answer any questions that you all have about this leadership project. It's an all-electric, super efficient building that produces more energy on site than it uses over the course of a year. The first LEED Zero energy project in the US was Integrity Headquarters. It's also an all-electric office building. It was originally built in 1959, and the team actually retrofitted this project to hit their zero energy goals. The first LEED Zero carbon building is actually located in Beijing, China, and it is the Hanergy Renewable Energy Center, featuring some of their own technology on the top and sides of the building. And it's really intended as an exhibition and showroom to advance education as well as understanding of the renewable energy market. Our first LEED Zero water project is also located in Brazil, also supported by Petinelli, which is really exciting work that you guys are doing. And this 14-story building treats 100% of its wastewater, both gray water and black water, on site through a constructed wetland on its roof. And this is another image of the constructed wetland on that Condominio Comercial Euro Business Office building. The alternative water sources contribute to an 82% reduction in potable water use at this project. So really a leadership and exciting case study for us to all learn more about. And then lastly, the first LEED Zero Waste project is the Method Manufacturing Plant in Chicago, Illinois. As I mentioned, USGBC's marketing team is excited to help celebrate your project successes. So if you have any questions regarding the program or you would like to register a project, email lead0@usgbc.org. My email is also included on this slide if you have specific questions or feedback regarding anything that I've presented today. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I will pass it back to Juanita.
Emma, for your presentation, and for everyone that's joining us in this session. We're going to have Emma in the panel so that we will answer also some of the questions. If you have questions, you can also use the chat box. Thank you very much, Emma, for your time and joining us today. Let me just share my screen. So today we want to share with all of you also a video from World TBC that's important for us, because part of all of the work that we are doing, all of the work that these amazing speakers have shared today is because we need to act on climate. So I hope you can see this video well and enjoy it for a couple of minutes.
Together for the uptake of the World Green Building Council is a network of green building working together for the uptake of sustainable buildings for everyone, everywhere. This year in World Green Building Week, we're inviting you to join us on climate.
If I could offer you only one tip for the future, net zero buildings would be it.
The long-term climate change buildings proven by science.
Whereas the rest of our advice has no basis, more reliable than our own collective decades experience.
We will dispense this advice now.
Take responsibility to make a difference.
You may not understand your power and influence until it's too late.
But trust me, in 20 years, you'll look back at this time and wonder why you didn't act.
When there was a time, choosing from 1.5 pieces.
Net zero buildings are not as difficult as you imagine.
Don't worry about climate deniers. We know buildings are responsible for 39% of global carbon emissions, and inaction is not an option.
The challenges lie not just in operational carbon emissions of buildings.
And sustainable buildings can handle climate change.
They can rejuvenate the environment.
And promote health, well-being, and resilience economies.
Act on climate.
For communities. For the planet.
For economies.
Act on climate. For our communities.
Our communities are the beating hearts of our cultures and societies. And net zero buildings can make our communities thrive.
And more resilient. And when it comes to supporting our communities,
apologies, they are Bueno, parece que por algún motivo el video no se está pudiendo ver. Se los voy a compartir en el chat para que más adelante lo puedan revisar, y vamos a continuar con nuestras sesiones del día de hoy. Quiero tomarme un momento para invitarlos a el lanzamiento global del marco de acción de salud y bienestar, en inglés, The Framework of Health and Well-Being, de nuestro proyecto Better Places for People. Este evento tendrá lugar de manera virtual, claramente el 4 de noviembre, y vamos a tener una serie de speakers internacionales de muy alto nivel que estarán hablando de los 6 principios de salud y bienestar que el World GBC ha planteado a través de un trabajo de 2 años de consulta, de revisión e investigación, y donde pues tendrán herramientas para que ustedes puedan evaluar estos aspectos en sus diferentes proyectos, iniciativas, comunidades, y así tener más herramientas de aplicación para lograr edificios sostenibles y saludables alrededor del mundo. Vamos entonces a continuar y le quiero dar la palabra a César Ulises Treviño, director general de BEA y MC Lead Fellow. Vamos a tener la presentación de él sobre el camino hacia edificios con 0 emisiones de carbono, visión y experiencias. César, muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros el día de hoy y te invito a que compartas tu pantalla en este momento.
Con mucho gusto. Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas tardes. ¿Se escucha bien?
Sí, perfecto.
Excelente. Muchas gracias, Juanita. Muy amable por la invitación. Igualmente, si son tan amables de confirmarme que la presentación, mi pantalla, se esté viendo ahora correctamente.
Sí, se está viendo perfecto.
Excelente. Pues muchísimas gracias. Realmente muy honrado. But I just learned that I should speak in English. Is that the point? I got an email, a message from Abel. So my PowerPoint is in English. Should I be speaking also in English or in Spanish instead? If you can confirm, Juanita, please.
César, como te sientas más cómodo, está perfecto.
Well, thank you. Since the project, since the presentation, it's written in English. Apologies to my fellows speaking in English, but I think it'll be fair also to speak in Spanish instead. But you can follow the slides on English. So, pues muchas gracias. Sobre todo un agradecimiento particular a Guatemala Green Building Council, al World Green Building Council y a BEA por esta invitación. Aprecio mucho esta oportunidad de compartirles acerca de programas y proyectos y experiencias relacionadas con edificios 0 carbono en las Américas y específicamente en México. Entonces, procedo con mi presentación. A sus órdenes, mi nombre es César Ulises Treviño. Tengo la dirección de una empresa de consultoría en edificación sostenible en México y he tenido el orgullo de poder servir como presidente fundador, presidente fundador del México Green Building Council y secretario y tesorero del World GBC en años anteriores. Así que pues me siento muy en casa y muy apreciado por esta oportunidad de compartir con ustedes. Bien, brevemente me gustaría compartirles conceptos relacionados a edificios de 0 carbono, 0 energía, particularmente algunas iniciativas y proyectos regionales. ¿Cuál es el reto que encontramos cuando hablamos de oportunidades para desarrollar infraestructura o edificación sostenible o más allá en este concepto particular de 0 energía? Pues cuando en países como el nuestro, hablando por México, pues encontramos que para los ciudadanos existen otras presiones, otras necesidades que deben de ser satisfechas oportunamente. Y para un ciudadano en México, los temas como la seguridad, la transparencia, la burocracia, participación ciudadana, pues anteceden a las preocupaciones del cambio climático y la calidad del aire. En ese sentido, tenemos que encontrar un lenguaje, tenemos que encontrar los proyectos o los programas que puedan acercarse más al ciudadano, de tal suerte que pueda entenderse también la prioridad y el sentido de necesidad de actuar en estos conceptos de la edificación sostenible que aportan naturalmente a la lucha del cambio climático. Entonces, esto es para tener un contexto realmente dónde estamos ubicados en temas de interés, tal y como lo menciona este estudio del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. Ahora, en lo que refiere a la emisión de gases de efecto invernadero al 2050 en América Latina, tenemos este cálculo, es un cálculo muy genérico, como lo pueden ver, pero al hablar de las industrias que tenemos que compartir este reto de la reducción de emisiones, pues nos damos cuenta, para empezar, que en el sector edificación, nuestra exigencia en comparación al de otras industrias no lo es tanto. Se está apostando mucho, al menos en la región de América Latina, de que ese camino hacia la descarbonización en el 2050 se logre por un gran cambio en el manejo de uso de la tierra, de los programas forestales y de agricultura y residuos. Y aunque, repito, en nuestro presupuesto de sector, la exigencia debe ser cumplida, realmente tenemos mucho por hacer. Hay un gran potencial para lograr más y mejores cambios en la reducción de emisiones de CO2. Es un tema que va a la alza, lo hemos escuchado, hemos estado compartiendo estos proyectos y estos casos de éxito de nuestros colegas en Brasil, aquí mismo en México, en Centroamérica, y felizmente vemos que ya se empieza a colocar en la agenda pública el concepto de cambio climático y en particular los edificios cero carbono. Entonces, aquí hacemos referencia precisamente a una reunión de autoridades públicas el año pasado, donde ya 18 ciudades de América Latina iniciaron conversaciones para acelerar este cambio climático, la lucha del cambio climático, perdón, con tareas precisamente de edificio cero carbono. Ahora, en el tema de los conceptos nuevos, emergentes, pues tenemos que empezar a identificar estas ideas. Ahora Emma nos acaba de compartir estos conceptos de zero waste, de zero energy, zero carbon en particular, y quizá para algunos es algo que nos resulte familiar, pero para otros no lo es así. Y sin embargo, si esto supone el objetivo que debemos de buscar todos como una comunidad, como una región, como un país, pues tenemos que empezar a interiorizarlos, tenemos que empezar a aceptarlos de una manera más natural, que no nos resulte extraña, ¿no? Entonces, nos empezamos a familiarizar con estos conceptos de cero energía, cero desperdicio, cero agua, emisiones neutrales de CO2, cero huella de carbono, edificios de energía positiva, edificios casi cero energía, y la realidad es que nos preguntamos, pues bueno, y esto un poco como de qué va, ¿no? En fin, o sea, creo que aquí el punto es darnos el tiempo de empezar a familiarizarnos, y en ese sentido, los programas que estamos compartiendo, foros como este, pues son precisamente puntos de partida y de convergencia para estos conceptos, ¿no? Y queremos alejarnos de este concepto de, como lo habrán escuchado ya, seguramente, de estos proyectos, diseños, edificios menos malos, y transitar a este punto de inflexión que llamamos net zero, cero neto, y de ahí partir a este concepto deseable de edificios regenerativos. Y me parece esto fenomenal. Realmente quienes hemos tenido la oportunidad de estar en estos temas por varios años ya, pues veíamos esta parte de la curva verde como algo idealista, como algo demasiado futurista, y felizmente creo que hemos acelerado el paso y ahora nos encontramos más cerca y nos sentimos más confiados de que podemos lograr esta condición de edificaciones cero neto energía, cero neto carbono, a manera individual, como lo acabamos de ver en los proyectos y en los casos de éxito, tanto de México, de Brasil y Centroamérica, como ahora lo quisiéramos ver en gran escala, que estos casos de estudio se repliquen, se multipliquen. Y en este sentido, como lo escucharemos seguramente más adelante, y por esto no me detengo tanto en esta filmina, pues entender estos conceptos básicos, ¿no? Nosotros como profesionistas del sector diseño y edificación, pues debemos de empezar a entender cómo en nuestra actividad profesional podemos generar este cambio. Cada proyecto que hoy estamos trabajando, estamos con la posibilidad de aprovechar o desaprovechar un cambio en ese edificio que habrá de estar operando por muchos años en el futuro, de una forma correcta o incorrecta, de acuerdo a estas decisiones que tomemos en etapas tempranas del proyecto. Entonces, pensar cómo reducir el carbono incorporado en la etapa de diseño y con esto plantear un edificio de mínima afectación o de mínimas emisiones operativas de carbono, eso sería el mejor legado que podemos hacer. Y ahora les comentaré un poco de lo que estamos haciendo igualmente en nuestra oficina. Y bien, entendiendo que estas afectaciones hoy en día, quizá para la matriz energética de algunos países como el nuestro, pues tiene esta proporcionalidad. Pero en países donde mayormente las fuentes son de energías limpias y renovables, esto puede llegar a invertirse, ¿no? Donde entonces hay que apostar, como en este programa que hemos escuchado y volveremos a conocer más a detalle, de reducción del carbono incorporado en los edificios, un programa del World Green Building Council. Vamos a ver cómo esto toma muchísima más relevancia en los países que ahora también ya tienen una red energética muy limpia. ¿Y dónde está el gran reto hoy en día? Pues que se nos apareció esta pandemia. Teníamos quizá ya un poco de dificultad en entender el reto del cambio climático, que lo veíamos a muy largo plazo. Pero antes de esto, pues lo que estamos resintiendo, el COVID nos está llevando a una afectación, a una posible recesión económica, algunos países, algunas regiones, ojalá y no a nivel global, pero esto no quita que por estar ahora con las preocupaciones inmediatas del COVID, descuidemos la gran importancia de lo que subyace, que es la atención ahora mismo de los efectos nocivos del cambio climático. Y a lo que nos lleva, pues, es a replantear precisamente nuestra forma de analizar, de observar los problemas y sobre todo cómo los resolvemos. Creo que felizmente ya hay un cambio y una mejora en la forma en la que estructuramos nuestros negocios. Muchas de nuestras actividades cotidianas lo hacemos con un mayor sentido de responsabilidad en temas ambientales y sociales, pero falta mucho por hacer. Y estos conceptos que estamos aprendiendo del ciclo de vida tienen que pasar ya a la acción, a la inmediatez de cada uno de nuestros proyectos, entenderlo en todo su círculo completo, desde la selección de la tierra, planeación, construcción, toda la etapa operativa, y desde el inicio haberlo planteado para ese cierre en etapa de construcción, demolición y entrar de nuevo en un círculo virtuoso, esto a través de un escenario, un canvas sano de inversión y financiamiento. Y para esto, conocer más cómo podemos generar este caso de negocio de la edificación sostenible a través del costo del ciclo de vida, ¿no? Que también hemos escuchado y conoceremos más de estas herramientas de cómo poder presentar de una manera sólida la información que pueda llevarnos a una decisión bien tomada y que esto nos lleve a apostar por soluciones de mayor eficiencia energética, de menores emisiones de gases de CO2, porque tiene un sentido económico en la vida completa del edificio. Les quiero compartir un proyecto referente en México que iniciamos con este objetivo de ser un edificio cero energía. En realidad, el concepto de cero carbono habría sido una etapa subsecuente, pero nació como un edificio cero energía en un modelo participativo. Y creo que esto es algo muy rescatable y muy particular de este proyecto, donde precisamente tuvimos la oportunidad de reunirnos en forma de consorcio, un grupo de empresas, inclusive nacionales e internacionales, como ustedes podrán identificar, para buscar este proyecto desde su concepción, interiorizarlo como un edificio cero energía. Entonces, en este consorcio tenemos empresas especialistas en el diseño, en el suministro, la construcción y la operación de edificios. Y encontramos felizmente a un aliado que es el desarrollador, Capital Natural, quien con su visión aceptó esta propuesta de valor por parte del consorcio para diseñar y construir este proyecto de bandera. ¿Qué es lo que buscamos en este proyecto? Que fuera un referente para toda la región, que probara el caso de negocio para los edificios de cero energía, que fuera un proyecto atractivo para los inversionistas de los bienes inmuebles, que pudiera obtener mucha promoción y que naturalmente estuviera dotado de condiciones innovadoras como proyecto. Este proyecto se llama Home Wellness. Es un proyecto que está ubicado en San Pedro Garza García. Es una municipalidad de la ciudad de Monterrey, en el noreste de México. Es un proyecto de escala comercial diseñado, como decimos, para la triple corona. Cero energía, certificado, platino y certificación WELL. Este proyecto, para que tengan igualmente un poco más de datos, está en el distrito Arboleda, precisamente en este municipio de la ciudad de Monterrey. Son más de 11,000 metros cuadrados de construcción, de los cuales 5,000 metros cuadrados son espacio rentable, incluyendo cajones subterráneos, más de 200, y sobre todo desde su concepción a el wellness, a servicios y retail de salud y bienestar. ¿Qué fórmula seguimos? Como ahorita la acabamos de escuchar, no muy diferente, en realidad, de cómo establecer estos pasos para un diseño cero energía. Trabajamos en la optimización de las dimensiones. Creo que esto fue muy importante. Considerar los volúmenes, los espacios climatizables y que requieren de servicios activos al mínimo necesario. Trabajamos en paso segundo en el desempeño del envolvente, es trabajar los conceptos de arquitectura bioclimática de una manera pasiva. Entonces, como tercer paso, se hizo la selección de equipos y sistemas de alta eficiencia energética para lograr el menor consumo y el diferencial, como lo hemos escuchado también en la previa presentación, pues suministrado con energías renovables in situ. Entonces, esta fórmula sencilla, en principio, la trabajamos desde el día 1. Y aquí les pongo una analogía que se me ocurrió, espero que tenga algún sentido, pero bueno, ayer se me ocurrió. Decía, a ver, estamos muy habituados a los deportes, ¿no? El que les guste. El fútbol, soccer, el fútbol americano, el tenis, el rugby, ¿no? Y decimos, bueno, el juego lo conocemos, pero mi analogía es que ahora tenemos, como lo han escuchado, que demostrar el desempeño real. Tenemos que realizar, evidentemente, los cálculos, las valoraciones técnicas desde la etapa temprana, como les mencionaba, pero nada nos va a perdonar encontrarnos con la realidad y el desempeño. Y en ese sentido, lo que yo ahora hago la analogía es, bueno, va a haber una revisión. Aparte de todos esos cálculos y elementos, equipos y fichas técnicas, va a haber una revisión, y esa revisión de desempeño nos dirá si verdaderamente estamos neutralizando nuestras emisiones de CO2 o estamos logrando un balance neto energético, ¿no? Entonces, esta referencia, esta analogía que me permito hacer, pues es esto, ¿no? Que nuestro bar, ¿no? Bar con V, ¿no? Lo que es en el otro bar, es el equivalente al desempeño y la verificación del desempeño. Entonces, ojo con esto. O sea, finalmente, creo que estos sistemas, como lo explicaba Emma Hughes, en cuanto al LEED, por ejemplo, la familia de certificaciones LEED Zero, pues a esto vamos, al desempeño. Nos permiten mucha más flexibilidad en cómo llegar a esta condición de eficiencia. Sabemos que tenemos las herramientas, pero vamos a ir a mayor profundidad en ello. Y esto lo que me lleva es que tenemos que empezar a entender que hay una nueva moneda de cambio. Hay un nuevo elemento, una unidad transaccional que tenemos que entender como fundamental, que es el CO2, que tenemos que traducir y monetizar tanto los impactos negativos como los beneficios. Sabemos naturalmente que existe ya en el mercado inclusive de bolsa de valores, emisiones de CO2, pero al menos en el sector de edificación creo que tenemos mucho por hacer por entender de una mejor manera las implicaciones directas y externalidades de las emisiones de CO2. Sin entrar mucho en profundidad, porque no tengo mucho tiempo, creo que se me está acabando el tiempo, de hecho, simplemente esos 4 pasos de la fórmula que mostré anteriormente, ahora se los comparto. Fue un proceso de diseño integrado, incorporando estrategias pasivas y activas en ese orden, después el suministro de controles operativos y finalmente el diferencial energético con sistemas de energías renovables en sitio. Y repito, si me pueden ayudar simplemente con seguir rápidamente estos conceptos, pues iniciamos por la fase primera de reducción de la demanda energética, con objetivos muy claros. Iniciamos con un charrette de diseño multidisciplinar. Creo que esto nos dio un alineamiento muy importante a todas las empresas involucradas. Después, en el grupo de diseño, estuvimos trabajando mucho en los conceptos de diseño solar pasivo, la incorporación de una fachada bioclimática, conceptos de temperización natural o aislamiento del envolvente. Hicimos naturalmente una serie de ejercicios, modelaciones energéticas, que después nos llevaron a diseñar correctamente de una manera óptima los diferentes sistemas consumidores de energía. Hicimos, debo de mencionarles, por ejemplo, para este caso, hicimos alrededor de 14 modelaciones energéticas para optimización. Entonces fueron procesos iterativos muy importantes, vimos diferentes escenarios hasta llegar al punto mínimo de consumo deseado en una condición económica viable. Vemos entonces ya y proyectamos las estrategias operativas, incluyendo contratos de renta verde que llamamos para compartir los incentivos de la eficiencia energética, incluyendo comisionamiento de sistemas en su modo avanzado. Entendimos estos conceptos de EUI, el uso de intensidad de la energía, ¿no? Para hacer un benchmark, un comparativo a nivel internacional, mayormente con las bases de datos de Estados Unidos, de tal manera que lográramos una escala adecuada y finalmente, con un poco de protección, un suministro de un 110% del requerimiento de energía renovable en sitio. Este proyecto ya está en etapa de construcción, de hecho, y menciono precisamente que cuestiones económicas y muy relacionadas a la pandemia, bueno, pues han dejado en stand-by este objetivo particular. Se está haciendo una valoración para retomar estas triple certificación de búsqueda, pero el proyecto ha sido diseñado de acuerdo a estos objetivos que he planteado. Entonces, en ese sentido, creo que merece esa valoración de haber sido conceptualizado, diseñado y preparado para una proyección de esta naturaleza. ¿Qué es lo que hemos aprendido? Si me permiten, en un resumen, pues que los retos humanos pueden ser tanto o más que los técnicos. Y básicamente hemos aprendido a ser tolerantes, a ser resilientes, a ser empáticos en el proceso de construcción, de tal manera de que todos hemos aprendido de todos muchísimo en este proceso. Entonces, creo que nos sentimos muy, muy cómodos con la capacidad técnica, con el desarrollo tecnológico y con una buena voluntad humana. Esto puede ser muy asequible. ¿Qué es lo que viene? Naturalmente, y mencionando lo anterior, en lo que pudieran ser restricciones de los nuevos objetivos del proyecto, pues buscar estos temas de control de calidad en la fase de construcción, la colaboración de los inquilinos, que va a ser fundamental, al igual que los sistemas de monitoreo y verificación, manejo de riesgos. Mencionaba que apenas iniciarían las condiciones para validar los objetivos de carbono incorporado y operacional, y sobre todo registrar el caso de negocio ya en la etapa operativa, con la intención precisamente de poder compartirlo, escalarlo y replicarlo. Sobre todo con un mensaje positivo y humano para la obtención de estos objetivos superiores de cambio climático. Y cierro, si me permiten, ya rápidamente. Me han pedido que conversar un poco sobre nuestra adherencia, nuestra participación en el compromiso de edificios cero carbono del World Green Building Council. Nosotros, como les mencionaba, somos una empresa de consultoría en edificación sostenible en México. Llevamos ya 20 años en el mercado. Y cuando nos enteramos de este programa de avanzar a cero los edificios en conceptos de carbono por el World Green Building Council y The Climate Group, pues lo estuvimos pensando como por 3 milisegundos, porque pues claro, claro que nos sumamos. Inmediatamente pusimos manos a la obra y realizamos nuestro compromiso. Un compromiso que formalizamos, fuimos parte de una última camada, de un último grupo que se suma a ya más de 100 empresas que han suscrito este compromiso. De hecho, Petinelli también es una empresa en Brasil, que ellos fueron los primeros en firmarla en América Latina. Y nosotros nos sumamos porque simple y sencillamente este compromiso del World Green Building Council sobre edificios cero carbono se alinea perfectamente con nuestra visión y nuestro mandato como organización. Y nuestro compromiso es iniciar con nuestras propias oficinas que sean cero carbono al 2030, cero carbono operativo, y sobre todo tener la capacidad de apoyar a nuestros clientes, que creo que es donde podemos lograr la mayor trascendencia. Tenemos 5 pasos, nos hemos comprometido, vamos a tener que compartir todo aquello que vayamos logrando y sobre todo promover ante nuestros clientes que tienen una capacidad y una mayor potencial de generar cambio, les vamos a ayudar a que ellos mismos tengan su propio plan de reducción de emisiones al 2050. Y ese es nuestro compromiso. Cada nuevo edificio, cada nuevo proyecto en el que trabajemos, ayudaremos a nuestros clientes, primero, a calcular sus propias emisiones de CO2 operativas y de carbono incorporado, y segundo, un plan de descarbonización 2030-2050. Eso como una parte de nuestra receta y nuestro compromiso a partir de haber suscrito hace un mes esta participación en el World GBC. Entonces, para nosotros es un gran orgullo. Estamos verdaderamente comprometidos y felices de poder sumarnos a este programa de gran escala, de escala global, que nos marca claramente cuál debe ser la ruta que debemos de seguir como sector de edificación en las próximas décadas. Y las reflexiones finales, si me permiten, trabajar precisamente en el desarrollo de códigos técnicos y regulaciones para que puedan permitir e interiorizar mejor esos conceptos de alta eficiencia energética y de cero carbono. Cuidado con las modelaciones energéticas en el sentido de buscar siempre la mayor optimización, realizar los ejercicios que sean necesarios para lograr el mínimo requerimiento energético. Se puede lograr muchos ahorros económicos inclusive entre las sinergias de diseño y construcción, y de ahí puede salir capacidad de financiamiento precisamente para las ecotecnologías que puedan ocuparse. También un aprendizaje, mantener precisamente en equilibrio energía, carbono y bienestar. Que no sea un elemento tan dominante que nos castigue alguno de los otros dos. Y estar en esta disposición de aprendizaje, de compartir. Algo muy importante igualmente, monetizar los beneficios intangibles. Eso es fundamental. ¿Cuánto cuesta la salud? ¿Cuál es el costo del bienestar de los usuarios? ¿Cuál es el costo de las emisiones de CO2 a nivel planetario? Eso tenemos que traducirlo a un estado financiero y darle un sentido económico más fuerte. Y sobre todo, nos quedamos con la satisfacción de saber que estas metas de cero carbono y de cero energía pueden lograrse, estamos en el tiempo de hacerlo y debemos iniciar ahora. Así es que, pues esta es la invitación a entendernos en una configuración en la que somos parte de un ecosistema completo, que tenemos una función que realizar de manera más ordenada y que hay oportunidades. Hay efectivamente un caso de negocio muy importante de llegar con una propuesta diferenciada de valor en temas de sostenibilidad y pasar del caso habitual de negocio, transitar con confianza y dar ese salto hacia estas nuevas metas de edificios cero energía y cero carbono. Muchas gracias a ustedes.
César, muchísimas gracias por esta presentación, por compartir estas, no solo todo el proceso del proyecto y las experiencias que han tenido, sino también esas reflexiones de como todos los procesos aprendidos y esas lecciones a tomar en cuenta, no solo desde lo técnico, sino también desde lo social. Y sobre todo felicitarlos por el proyecto y porque ustedes están demostrando que se puede liderar con el ejemplo al unirse al compromiso de Net Zero Carbon Buildings del World GBC, y pues que en nuestra región muchas veces estos conceptos y estas ideas de tener unas edificaciones más ambiciosas que quieran cumplir estas metas a veces generan un poco de resistencia, pero con tu presentación y pues con todos los temas que hemos visto a lo largo de la mañana, vemos que esta es una realidad que ya está pasando en nuestra región, que necesitamos seguir promoviendo, cultivando y generando también como ese caso de negocio que mencionabas tú, para que esto sea no solo la excepción de algunos casos de proyectos y edificios que cumplen con estos estándares, sino pues que se vuelva esa nueva línea base de construcción. Muchísimas gracias por tu intervención y por la claridad de los conceptos y lo presentado.
Al contrario.
Bueno, en este momento vamos a continuar entonces con nuestra agenda del día y le quiero dar la palabra a Guido Pettinelli, Managing Partner de Pettinelli, quien nos va a hablar del compromiso de la Asociación Adventista con el ejemplo de 50 escuelas privadas. Guido, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing with us your experience with this project. Now, please, you can share your screen and we can continue with your presentation.
Thank you, Juanita. Can you hear me well and can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, I'd like to thank the World Green Building Council and Felipe for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be able to share some of the work we've been doing, especially today to share the work that's been going on at Adventist Education, which is a private school board in southern Brazil. It's fantastic to see all the work that's going on in the Americas, and I'm going to take advantage of the introduction to share some of the work we're doing. It's fantastic to see us getting to net zero so quickly and to see it spread and to gain scale. I think there's a takeaway from my presentation is the challenge is not, to do one net zero energy building. It's how do we grow these into tens and hundreds of buildings. And I think that when we make the business case, if it makes sense for one school, then it makes sense for 50, and it will make sense for 500. It will make sense for all schools. As Emma mentioned, it's also especially sweet the fact that the first LEED Zero Energy and LEED Zero Water buildings are in Latin America. Our office in Curitiba is net zero energy and water. Hopefully we'll be LEED Zero Water soon. We just become LEED Zero Carbon. I think that our office played an important role as a showcase, working with some of these new concepts and trying out some of these things. When we talk about building a wetland for your business on their roof, first we built it in our backyard. But as we move from these early projects, our office has been in operation for 5 years. It's certified GBC Zero Energy. It was one of the first projects. Your business has been in operation for 5 or 6 years now. It was zero water before it was LEED Zero Water. Things are picking up. Just last month, Brazil commemorated its first LEED Zero Carbon certification with a law office. It's fun to see 2 lawyers excited about LEED Zero Carbon, LEED Zero Energy, and LEED Platinum. They were awarded all 3 certifications in the same day. These guys aren't from the construction industry. I think when we talk about energy self-sufficiency and we talk about zero is a concept that everybody can relate to. It's not from the construction industry to the construction industry. This has a much broader appeal. And the first public building in Brazil to be certified LEED Zero is Creche Assis. Again, a building that was in operation and it was net zero before GBC Brazil Zero Energy came about or before LEED Zero came about. But these early projects set the framework for what Florianopolis is doing now, which is 60 schools that are being retrofitted, 37 of which will be net zero energy with generation on site. These are deep green energy retrofits, all lighting, all HVAC, a lot of the equipment from your fridge to your computer monitor, energy use reductions between 40 and 50%, and then renewable energy added on to that to turn these buildings self-sufficient. And the big guys are getting on the game. So Coca-Cola's first LEED Zero certified building in the world is in the Americas. It's in Latin America. It's in a small town in the interior of Brazil. And we didn't realize that this was going to move so fast. This is an oncology hospital for kids. It was inaugurated just last month, LEED certified, WELL certified, and net zero energy. We're talking about a 1 megawatt plant to generate energy to turn a hospital. We're not talking about a low energy use intensity building here. We're talking an oncology hospital, net zero energy. But that brings me to the Adventist School Board. It's fantastic working with schools. And what we've learned is that working with school administrators, there's a real sense of purpose and mission, something that I think everybody in the green building movement shares. The idea that you are investing in the future generations. I think anybody who ever felt attracted to the mission of the green building movement knows it's about building better. It's about ensuring that we leave to future generations a world that is, you know, as plentiful as the one we inherited from our parents, our grandparents. And so working with the school board has been great for that reason. Also, because these guys, they run a business. And so I think the main lesson here is if you can make ends meet, it's aligned with your mission, and you show that there is, you know, sound financial case for it, then there's no reason why you wouldn't spread this across your entire portfolio. The basic concept here, which I think everybody is aware of, but I want to show you some data regarding this, is that, you know, if you're going to think about net zero energy, you're not going to get there without some sort of renewable energy generation. But everything that you can reduce in terms of energy efficiency will contribute towards bringing you closer to that goal. So you first do energy efficiency, and the rest of the way you do renewable energy generation, but you don't do that out of, you know, some fancy philosophy. You do that because it's cheaper, right? If you want to tunnel through the cost barrier, you're going to do energy efficiency first, because that's where your dollars will take you the furthest. And then you're going to go for the expensive stuff, the solar arrays, the wind turbines. But I think there's something else here that was really important. You're going to see the Adventist School Board has made a huge investment. They wouldn't do this if they didn't feel safe about that investment. And so that's why measured performance is so key. The idea that I can measure and verify the outcomes the way Cesar just described. I think that's an important part of the decision-making process for the Adventist School Board, and we've seen that with every one of our clients. Now, this is the data that really did it for them. Every one of these columns is a school in Paraná and Santa Catarina, which are two of the southern states of Brazil. We're talking about 43 schools here, 43 little columns. We're talking about close to 25,000 students that go to these schools. And if you look at the EUI, or the energy use per square meter, you can see that there are schools that are using 10 kilowatt hour per year, and there are schools that are using 50 kilowatt hour per year. We're not talking a little difference here. We're talking about 1 to 5. That's pretty major. Now, more importantly, if we sum up all the energy that's being used above what the best in performance schools are at, well, that's wasted energy, that's wasted money, that's 57% of their energy bill thrown away every month, right? So when you start to realize the potential for energy efficiency, it's pretty awe-inspiring. And showing this to the clients was absolutely key to get them mobilized to looking not only at their first project we were working on, but looking at their entire portfolio. And so these buildings are already in operation. I'm going to share you with some data. You know, we're talking about over 50 schools, over 90 buildings, but the first ones are already operational and should be certified in the next semester. The project so far includes 3 states, Paraná, Santa Catarina, and Rio Grande do Sul, the Brazilian state, southernmost states. We're talking about schools in 41 cities. There are 57 schools in total. These schools include 95 buildings, because some of these schools are boarding schools There are campuses that include dormitories, that include labs, that include gyms. Overall, we're talking about 43,000 kids, teachers, school administrators that walk into these schools every day to study, to work. And we're talking about 290,000 square meters of overall gross floor area. So the amazing part for me is how quickly we've gone from doing 1 or 2 buildings to talking about, almost 60 schools in one corner of southern Brazil, 180 with Felipe and the government of Paraná, and Florianopolis with another 60. We're talking about hundreds of buildings that are being retrofitted. Mariano showed us today all the public buildings in a small town, 28. If a small town can do it, if the financial feasibility is there, well, then there's no reason why any other town shouldn't do it, because buildings are buildings. It's not about the size of town you're in. This is just a quick little map. I like it because it shows Paraguay, it shows Argentina, it shows Uruguay, right? I mean, this is pretty impactful to me. We're talking about a lot of buildings, but we're talking about a geographically diverse distribution of these buildings. Obviously, everybody is enchanted about the idea of producing their own energy. In this case, we're talking about over 5 megawatt of capacity being installed altogether. That's about 34,000 square meters of photovoltaic panels. That's equivalent to 4.8 soccer fields. A lot of people don't know this, but soccer fields is an official unit of measure in Brazil. That's a joke. But it's a lot of photovoltaic panels, right? It's 1 hectare, it's 3 hectares of photovoltaic panels. And the how is pretty simple. You got to make ends meet, and we're lucky to have a federal program in Brazil that funds energy efficiency. We were the first ones to use the funds towards net zero energy buildings. We certainly won't be the only ones for long. But out of a total investment of 32 million reais, that's approximately $6 million. 22 million reais is non-refundable PEE grant money. I'll show you why that's important later. But that means that for the Adventist School Board, their out-of-pocket investment, it's only $10 million, 10 million reais. Now, when you put that investment, that 10 million reais against the annual projected savings of 4 million, we're talking about a 39% return on investment and a payback period for the institution that's less than 3 years. Now, that's pretty amazing, right? I mean, people in North America, if they go buy an electric car, depending on the state you are or the car you're buying, you get a discount due to a federal incentive program. That's basically the same thing working over here. But if you run a school and you look at this presentation, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be retrofitting your school and turning it zero energy. And that's what's going on, right? So this is another one of the Adventist schools that are already operational at net zero energy. These are projects. This is a fairly new schools that we worked on from the early design stage. But all this built up to the Adventist School Board signing up to become a commitment signatory for the World Green Building Council's net zero carbon commitment, right? It wasn't about committing first and doing it later. In their case, it was about doing it first, and the commitment was just a good, fun way of celebrating something that for them made sense. It made sense for a bunch of reasons. I'll get into that in a little bit. But obviously, we're incredibly proud of them for signing up to the commitment, and for Victoria for helping us along with this. We're also commitment signatories. We're a tiny little signatory. It's great to bring on board such a large organization and to see that organization flourish in their climate action commitments. And for the Adventist School Board, it's not just about energy. It's not just about dollars and cents. Obviously, they have the responsibility to care for what's most precious in the world, which is, our youngsters. And it's part of their value system to be looking forward and thinking, you know, what makes a individual a responsible citizen? How do I prepare future generations to the challenges? How do we set them up for success? And I love this quote from their chair, the treasurer of the organization, which is taking action to ensure the planet's sustainability is about caring for the future and well-being of our youngsters. That's why we decided to retrofit all of our buildings to be energy self-sufficient, net zero energy. And that's why I say it's so special. It gives me the goosebumps to read this quote, because it's fantastic when there's such strong alignment, when we make the business case, but it's not just about the business case. And the fact that this is growing at the pace that it's growing and is inspiring others to do the same, it's a very special project for us. It's also special because all of these buildings are going to be certified zero energy by GBC Brazil standard, right? This is the certificate for Coca-Cola's plant. Our office is certified. I bet Felipe didn't realize when he got a committee together to launch a zero energy scheme that things would move so quickly and grow exponentially the way they are. I think that net zero is a second wind to the Green Building Council movement, because our audience is so much broader. We're so used to talking to people in the construction industry. I think we're now reaching out to a much broader spectrum of the population and engage them in something that's meaningful to them. Zero energy, zero water, zero carbon. The fun fact, all of these buildings are using ARC. Energy use was benchmarked. It was part of their grant applications. So looking at the Americas, at the Green Building Councils, we're talking about LEED Zero, we're talking about GBC Brazil's Zero Energy, we're talking about ARC, we're also talking about Zero Meter. Zero Meter is an energy monitoring systems for net zero energy buildings, something that we've had a hand in developing. The idea is, you know, for common folks, for people who run schools and hospitals and are not engineers and builders and architects, they need to, you know, get their information in a simple way. How much energy did I generate? How much energy did I use? And what's my balance, right? People are used to, you know, looking at their account balance from the bank. They know what credits are, what debits are. Zero energy shouldn't be more complicated than that. And measured performance in real time, right? So I'm making an investment. I want to make sure that I'm getting a return on my investment. I want to make sure that, you know, whatever was promised to me, it's being delivered. And I'm just going to wrap it up, which I think is the highlight of their experience and ours so far. And I don't know if Emma is watching this, but if she is, this is something that I want to talk to her about later. But this is their headquarters. So the Southern Union of the Adventist Schools in Brazil has a headquarters in Curitiba. It's an existing building. It's not a school. It wasn't part of the program. It didn't get any grant money in order to do its retrofit. But they said, listen, if we're doing all these schools, we got to do our building as well. And we said, great, let's talk about LEED Zero beyond energy. Let's talk about LEED Zero energy. Let's talk about LEED Zero water. Let's talk about LEED Zero waste. Let's talk about LEED Zero carbon. And I felt, you know, let's throw it all out there and let's see what these guys respond to. Maybe they will go for waste. I don't know, water, it's a pretty tough call. And I got a great response from the treasurer. And he said, listen, we'll do it. And I'm like, what will you do it? And he said, we'll do LEED Zero everything. And Emma, if you're listening, that's something that Pitnell is going to trademark, LEED Zero everything. I loved it. I love the fact that this guy used the word LEED Zero tudo in Portuguese, LEED Zero everything. You know, it doesn't, if you're going to go for zero energy, there's no reason why you're not going to go for zero water. There's no reason why you wouldn't go for zero waste. And the fact that we can move the construction industry that quickly, obviously, we're talking about an early adopter, but an early adopter that's doing it scale because there's a financial business case behind it. And when, you know, he's convinced, he's not asking, you know, am I going to do energy or water? He's saying, I'm going to do energy, I'm going to do water, I'm going to do waste, I'm going to do carbon. Lead zero, everything was pretty special. I think that's it. Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to be invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Guido, very much for this presentation and for all of the key takeaways that you have shared with all of the participants today, the clear examples and the explanation of how this is applicable and, of course, like the business case behind it. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Bonita.
Vamos a continuar con nuestra agenda de hoy. Tenemos ahora la presentación de Carlos Borges representando la Alcaldía de Medellín y el trabajo que están haciendo en la ciudad hacia acciones para edificaciones sostenibles. Carlos, muchas gracias por tu participación y en este momento ya puedes compartir tu pantalla y tu video para iniciar con tu intervención. Carlos, no te estamos viendo en este momento. Tu video y tu pantalla no la tenemos todavía al aire.
Ustedes tienen igualmente la presentación allá, la tenía Mabel, no sé si ella la pueda incluir allí.
Hola Carlos, perfecto, ya aquí te tengo, dame un momento, voy a compartir entonces tu presentación.
Sí, me disculpan, pero ahora tengo aquí, y me tienen bloqueado de allá la cámara y me tienen bloqueado compartir de la pantalla. A ver si puedes hacer algo, por favor.
Claro que sí, ya mismo voy a empezar a compartir tu pantalla. Dame un minuto, por favor.
Pero coloca la presentación, por favor, yo creo que sería lo...
Sí, estoy con la presentación. Dame un segundito.
Bueno, en la medida que vamos montando la presentación, pues retomo, pues muy contento de estar con ustedes y de compartir con nuestras experiencias. He puesto atenta nota a lo que nos han presentado Felipe, Alonso, César, Guido, Emma. Realmente son todas unas apuestas muy válidas para la construcción sostenible. Nosotros desde la Alcaldía de Medellín tenemos esos enfoques, haciendo mayor énfasis en que para nosotros la construcción sostenible es una condición de integridad, o sea, no es solamente manejar las construcciones como tales, sino que es manejarlas dentro del contexto del hábitat donde ellas se ubican y dentro de las dinámicas urbanas. ¿Qué son las dinámicas urbanas? Son todas las acciones que se tienen en un territorio, en un hábitat, incluyendo transporte, movilidad, la salud, la educación, todo lo que hay allí. Esta construcción sostenible no se aplica solamente, podemos pasar la próxima diapositiva, solamente a estas partes que les acabo de comentar, sino que también va al espacio público, va igualmente a los contenidos industriales, a los contenidos de grandes superficies comerciales, y allí nos enfocamos en tener todos estos criterios. No son únicamente los criterios de ahorro de agua y energía, sino que son igualmente los criterios de residuos sólidos y unos índices de confort en cuanto a lo que tiene que ver con la humedad, en cuanto a lo que tiene que ver con el ruido. Esos enfoques los hemos dado en la medida en que si nos enfocamos únicamente a agua y energía, tendríamos a las personas apostándole a una condición de hábitat propio, muy local, muy interno, y resulta que todo esto está relacionado con lo que es el cambio climático. La apuesta que hicimos en construcción sostenible es darle el enfoque hacia el cambio climático, hacia evitar las emisiones que están procediendo de este tipo de construcciones a las que estamos acostumbrados y el cambio urgente al que estamos abocados. Sabemos que en todo el planeta pues todos tenemos microclimas distintos, condiciones distintas. Yo creo que los que hemos expuesto solamente México, nosotros, no sé, en Brasil, estamos en unas condiciones de montaña que son muy diferentes a condiciones de otros contextos, ya que eso nos lleva a que tengamos medidas muy definidas y muy exclusivas para las situaciones que hay, y lo que me conlleva también a introducir el tema de la economía, las culturas y las poblaciones que tenemos para poder en un momento dado gestionar debidamente lo que son estas condiciones de cambio climático. Tenemos unos grandes retos acá en la ciudad, o sea, tenemos cerca de 650.000 viviendas existentes que tienen más de 15, 20 años de estar construidas, las cuales tenemos que repotenciar. No es demoler, no es reconstruir para no dejar que se siga acumulando todo ese carbón que está allí acumulado. Esos son más o menos 78 millones de metros cuadrados. Tenemos cerca de 250 centros oficiales de educación en la ciudad para tener que repotenciar, y vamos hacia esas transiciones energéticas y estamos trabajando una serie de investigaciones inclusive con las academias y con los sectores de la ciudad. En la presentación ustedes podrán ver una serie de elementos que hay allí de cuáles son los criterios, cuáles son los principios. Tenemos principios de ecología urbana, de desarrollo sostenible, de equidad, de hábitos de consumo. Entonces, esas son las condiciones que nosotros queremos proponer y que sean asumidas y adquiridas como propias por todos los sectores que están participando, tanto los ciudadanos como los que están haciendo las inversiones, los gremios de la construcción y todos estos actores que convergen aquí a lo que es el tema de la construcción. Un elemento común son los materiales, o sea, para construir usted necesita materiales. Desde ahí también arrancamos unas apuestas en cuanto a lo que es reciclar materiales, y tiene que ver mucho con que ya no se habla de demolición, sino de reconstrucción o reconversión de construcciones. En la ciudad tenemos a nivel administrativo 7 grandes edificaciones con condiciones de construcción sostenible, de ellas 3 hospitales, 4 sedes administrativas. En los privados tenemos cerca de 12 grandes edificios, tenemos hoteles, tenemos centros comerciales, bancos, tenemos un distrito térmico que también pues, nos colabora en esto del uso de energías alternativas, funciona a base de gas natural. Y tenemos unas situaciones complejas dado esto de la economía. ¿Cuáles son las situaciones de la economía? De que en un momento dado las personas toman las iniciativas de construcción sostenible, pero por no tener la posibilidad de pagar la actualización de su licencia de construcción, establecen la acción para su beneficio propio, para su economía y para su sostenibilidad, pero no registramos muchos de esos tipos de iniciativas particulares. Recientemente con el COVID-19 pues tuvimos una serie de acciones que tenían que ver con eso, con la construcción sostenible. Bueno, ¿qué pasa con este COVID-19? La gente se está enfermando en las casas, la gente está teniendo sus problemas allí, entonces fue entrar a verificar una situación que teníamos prevista, y es de que las condiciones sanitarias de las viviendas influyen mucho en la salud de las personas. Eso es una verdad que no hay que decirla, es una tautología yo comentándoles esto. Si allí no hay ventilación, si allí no hay unas condiciones higrométricas de humedad como es el índice que tenemos, si allí no tienen la iluminación solar con sus rayos ultravioletas que crean situaciones de higiene, pues muchas de esas personas pues, van a empezar a sufrir todos esos problemas, y eso agravaba las condiciones del COVID-19. En esa medida, pues para este periodo nos dimos a lo que era la repotenciación de cerca de 9.237 viviendas con unas inversiones de 33.2 millones de dólares. Tenemos la construcción de nuevos complejos habitacionales con 125 casas que suman una área aproximada de 3.252 metros cuadrados. Se ha creado para esta reactivación económica 34.700 nuevos empleos. Y creamos un hospital, aunque tenemos ya algunos hospitales con toda esa característica de construcción sostenible, un hospital específico para COVID-19 con inversión de 56 millones de dólares con otros centros sanitarios. Hay algunas situaciones con este hospital, que fue dotar 150 camas con 90 unidades de cuidados intensivos para atender a la pandemia, y empezar a conectar también a partir de este distrito térmico que genera agua congelada a partir de gas, 4 edificios cerca a un centro administrativo donde está la alcaldía. Se van a conectar 4 edificios nuevamente, 4 grandes sedes entre comerciales, educativas y administrativas, sobre las 5 que ya están allí conectadas. Usamos una parte que es la conectividad digital, que es el derecho a la conectividad digital, y escuchaba a Pedrero de México diciendo, bueno, el Internet para las casas. Yo creo que esto es una situación necesaria porque eso fue lo que nos permitió poder aquí hacer la gestión en la crisis, y en esa medida estamos trabajando por lograr un derecho a nivel internacional que tiene que ver con el derecho a la conectividad y aplicar todas estas acciones que están relacionadas con lo que es la aplicación de data, la aplicación del Internet de las cosas, la inteligencia artificial, que es lo que nos va a permitir en un momento dado hacerle frente a todos esos confinamientos, a todas esas acciones de que las personas estén guardando todas las condiciones de biodiversidad y las consultas médicas. O sea que construcción sostenible no se puede hablar si no tenemos el derecho a la conectividad. Es una de las variables que hay que incluir en lo que es la parte de la construcción sostenible. Temas igualmente tratados y que también acá tenemos en la ciudad son los incentivos y la reducción de las tasas de pago por impuestos, donde hemos establecido que para en un futuro 27 sobre 195.000 viviendas a construirse tanto en el sector privado como en el sector público. Se ha establecido un incentivo de cerca de 4 millones de dólares para que estas personas fomenten esa construcción, y incentivos que se dan de muchas maneras, en deducción de pago de impuestos, en bonos para comprar materiales y el uso también de algunos materiales reciclables como los que estamos haciendo aquí en la ciudad, que son materiales de construcción, que tienen que ver con aceros, con materiales que quedan relativamente intactos en buenas condiciones, madera, plásticos y otro tipo de elementos que se utilizan en construcción. También tenemos una serie de créditos en los sistemas públicos y privados, con algunos bancos como Bancolombia, como otras entidades que están haciendo ese tipo de préstamos a las personas para adquirir varios elementos. Voy a tocar aquí un tema que es importante y que da pie a que dentro de la complementariedad que se tiene con las otras presentaciones, es la evaluación de los costos de la construcción sostenible y la evaluación de las certificaciones y de los sellos. En un trabajo que hicimos con el CEPAL, vimos allí que había una serie de elementos que nos daban pie a analizar esa incidencia de que era una certificación y cuánto podía estar significando dentro de los costos de la construcción sostenible. Es una investigación que estamos llevando desde el año 2017 y vimos que daba costos aproximadamente equivalentes del 5 al 10% de la construcción. Son necesarios estos sellos, son necesarios estos labels, y está LEED que allí lo está proponiendo, está Green, está UC, está Passive House, está EDGE, tenemos los sellos propios, pero para comunidades pobres, para comunidades de bajos recursos, tenemos que entender que Latinoamérica tiene unos índices de pobreza muy distintos a muchos países de lo que llaman, entre comillas, el primer mundo. Entonces esa parte es una situación que tendríamos que saber analizar, porque una comunidad pobre como México, los que nos presentó Pedreros, pues no va a pagar una certificación que le signifique un sobrecosto en su vivienda porque tenga un sello o tenga un certificado de que es sostenible. Trabajamos eso con LEED. Con LEED trabajamos eso en el año 2015 en un evento internacional que hubo aquí en Colombia. Inclusive le dimos a LEED esas líneas con LEED de lo que era el manejo de residuos sólidos se incluyeron porque únicamente hasta ese momento estaba considerada la parte no más de energía y ahorros de agua, y resulta que se necesitaba incluir esa parte de residuos sólidos. Afortunadamente ya está funcionando. Otras partes que dimos fueron las partes de de lo que es el transporte. Pues estas viviendas necesitan acomodar su transporte, sus garajes, sus parqueaderos, para que allí se conecten los vehículos eléctricos, para que haya parqueaderos para las bicicletas o las motonetas o los demás elementos mecánicos de desplazamiento, y que las personas que vayan a llegar allí a sus trabajos o a sus sitios diferentes a su actividad de vivienda, pues tengan un sitio, unos lockers donde se puedan cambiar, o algunas veces unas duchas, situaciones de esta situación que igualmente trabajamos con LEED, y que eso se vio en la línea 13 y en otras líneas de estos apartados B3 y B4 que trabajamos en 2015 al 2016. Para terminar así esta exposición, antes de dar unos elementos de conclusión, no sé por qué no funcionó el desplazamiento de las diapositivas. Ustedes las tendrán y luego las analizarán posteriormente, porque allí se ilustran algunos de estos elementos. Ahí está pasando una que se ilustra cómo hicimos la renta equivalente en un momento dado para dar el incentivo para no afectar el fisco municipal en cuanto a la hacienda pública. Entonces nos dábamos a proponer unos escenarios de qué significaba reemplazar un material, y veíamos que costaba cerca de un material un metro cuadrado de construcción estaba generando 0.5 toneladas de carbono equivalente, y que había que reducirlo. Cómo afectaba eso la salud, cómo afectaba eso la canasta familiar, la situación de las personas a nivel de su poder adquisitivo. Entonces ahí veíamos ese tipo de situaciones. Podemos pasar a las otras diapositivas. Hicimos también una serie de investigaciones, nos unimos con la academia, pues la ciudad fue, ahí en esa diapositiva estamos viendo las acciones de COVID que ya les mencioné, lo que hicimos ahora frente a la pandemia. Hay unos edificios, hay una forma como se manejó la población en ese tipo de aislamiento requerido. Con las academias, vuelvo y retomo, entonces hicimos unas apuestas bueno, investiguemos en materiales, así logramos aplicar nanotecnología en algunos materiales, en algunas pinturas, en algunos aislantes, y la ciudad pues participó en la cumbre de alcaldes del 2019 de C40 en Copenhague, y fue el primer premio a nivel internacional. Tenemos otro tipo de investigaciones, y muchos de estos edificios pues han sido galardonados, pero esto no es lo importante es ver cuál es la masa crítica de la construcción sostenible en nuestro medio, cómo esa masa crítica es una población que requiere de estas condiciones sostenibles en sus viviendas, pero que ese aspecto debe jugar con su economía y con sus condiciones propias. Tareas futuras es mirar que en esos microclimas, nosotros estamos en una ciudad que tiene unas diferencias de altura de cerca de 1.500 metros hasta cerca de 2.600, 100 metros de diferencia en altitud para que allí tengamos una cantidad de situaciones muy diferentes en cuanto a corrientes de aire, en cuanto a radiaciones solares, en cuanto a microclimas, que hay que estudiarlas muy específicamente, porque los índices de confort, pues que si decimos es 21 grados de temperatura, o una iluminación de 90 a 100 lumens de iluminación, o un índice de higrométrico de humedad que no supere el 60% de concentración de agua en la atmósfera. Entonces, todo esto hay que jugarlo, nos lleva a estos retos, a plantear qué es lo que tenemos que hacer y cómo colocar todas estas situaciones dentro de la equidad, dentro de los aspectos sociales que la ciudad tiene que manejar, dentro de la economía urbana, dentro de la transición a ese transporte con combustibles no fósiles, desde el poder adquisitivo de las personas para entrar a la tecnología y poder adquirir sus electrodomésticos de bajo consumo de energía, de iluminación de bajo consumo, y que dure más de lo que tienen que estar allí. Entonces esa es la invitación que hacemos desde Medellín. A esto le estamos trabajando. Hago énfasis en esa parte que les digo del acceso a la conectividad virtual y a ese Internet de las cosas. Yo creo que ahí hay un futuro grande, porque eso permite que se den más logros de descarbonización, de que, por ejemplo, este es un ejemplo, perdón la redundancia de ejemplo, estamos en una conferencia, esta conferencia nos está permitiendo comunicarnos y nos ha evitado desplazamientos en aviones, de ir a hoteles, de hacer mil cosas. Entonces miremos cómo este Internet y cómo esta virtualidad nos está mostrando que sí, que el futuro tiene que ver mucho con la descarbonización, y si bien al comienzo de la introducción dábamos ese dato del 23.7%, que creo que da Juanita, de lo que aporta el sector de la construcción, Cifras que hemos analizado y que hemos estado trabajando nos dicen que el sector de la virtualidad, el sector de manejar la informática puede significar un 16.7% de la reducción de estas cargas equivalentes de emisiones de carbono. Entonces son los llamados nuestros a la reflexión. Está bien toda la tecnología, está bien toda la intermediación y terciarizaciones que tenemos con las empresas privadas, las alianzas público-privadas, pero miremoslo esto en la justa medida de correlacionarlos con las situaciones específicas propias de cada sitio y que protejamos a estas poblaciones vulnerables. Entonces yo dejaría ahí mi presentación. Muchas gracias a ustedes por permitirme participar en este evento. Quedamos abiertos, creo que en la presentación está mi correo para compartir información, aprender de ustedes. Todos tenemos mucho que aprender unos de los otros. Lo de Brasil me parece magnífico, lo de México igual. Tenemos una serie ahí de elementos que nos indican que esas formas de pensar precisamente crean esa biocultura, esa gran diversidad cultural que nos permite apostarle a la desde las distintas mentalidades, culturas, aproximaciones que pueden ser muy diferentes y no enfocarnos solamente en un estándar o volver la construcción sostenible como un elemento de primacía económica o de imposición económica. Muchas gracias, una feliz tarde para todos.
Carlos, muchísimas gracias por tu intervención y por presentarnos el ejemplo de la ciudad de Medellín y todos los avances y progresos que han tenido hasta este momento, incluyendo los retos que esta pandemia pues ha traído en nuestro contexto actual. Muchísimas gracias por tu tiempo y por tu intervención. Vamos a continuar con nuestra agenda del día de hoy. Quiero compartir un video de nuestro segundo aliado regional que ya les había mencionado hace un momento, BASE. Tendremos también la intervención de Dimitri, quien trabaja en esta organización.
The planet is becoming warmer. Population and economy are growing, while the demand for cooling is rising. Opting for a cooling system, you might consider but those come with a hidden price tag. Higher operation costs, high electricity consumption, frequent breakdowns, and the need for repairs. In this sense, modern cooling technology is less expensive because its life cycle cost is lower. Besides, innovative cooling systems provide higher indoor air quality and improved productivity. So how can you access a high-quality cooling system without...
Vamos a ver si logramos resolver los inconvenientes con los videos. Un momento. Vamos a ensayar nuevamente.
The planet is becoming warmer. Population and economy are growing, while the demand for cooling is rising. Opting for a cooling system, you might consider an inexpensive one, but those come with a hidden price tag. Higher operation costs, high electricity consumption, frequent breakdowns, and the need for repairs. In this sense, modern cooling technology is less expensive because its life cycle cost is lower. Besides, innovative cooling systems provide higher indoor air quality and improved productivity. So how can you access a high-quality cooling system without straining your budget? That's simple. Don't buy one. Just use cooling as a service. You do not invest and manufacturers remain owners of their equipment. You only pay a monthly fee for every metered unit of cooling. This fee includes maintenance, repair, and running costs like electricity and water. So you just pay for your actual use. It is the provider's interest to install the most efficient technology and to offer optimal operation and maintenance. This approach is called cooling as a service, a productive collaboration between providers, investors, and users of cooling systems. And you know what's even cooler? You'll be contributing to a cleaner planet. Consider this. The electricity consumed by air conditioning worldwide is equivalent to the electricity produced by 760 medium-sized coal power plants. This number will triple by 2050, and that equates to nearly a third of the electricity consumed globally today. By using modern cooling systems, we could save 45% of this energy. That's a lot of money too. In addition, the new systems work with refrigerants that have a much lower global warming potential. With cooling as a service, you'll support the circular economy. Keeping ownership encourages providers to develop modular and recyclable systems. Together, we're helping to create a cleaner, more productive, and cooler world. Now that's cool.
Bueno, para continuar, quiero nuevamente darle las gracias a Guido y a Carlos por participar en...
Hey everyone, welcome. We made it to Tuesday, friends. It's hard to believe.
Nuevamente, entonces, quiero darle las gracias a Guido y a Carlos por esta participación en nuestra agenda de hoy en este webinar regional. Con esto les agradezco si pueden desconectarse de esta plataforma para que nuestros siguientes panelistas puedan unirse a nuestra sesión. Muchas gracias nuevamente. Vamos a continuar con la intervención de Dimitris, representando a BASE, siendo el Senior Energy Efficiency Business Developer Specialist. Su presentación tratará cómo Cooling as a Service está configurado para acelerar la transición hacia edificaciones neto cero carbono en el mundo. Dimitris, muchas gracias por unirte. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours. And please go ahead. Thank you again for joining us. No, we can't hear you.
Thanks, Juanita. I was saying gracias also to the World Green Building Council for inviting us today to present our work in Cooling as a Service as BASE. And I thank as well Cesar and the panelists that just left for the very interesting conversations that they all had. So for the presentation, I will just cut my camera just to be sure that the connection stays stable, and I'll switch it on afterwards again. So just let me know if you can see my screen. I will share it now. You see my screen?
We can see it.
Excellent. So the video you've seen was created by the work we're doing, right? So a little word of the foundation for which I work for, which the name is called as BASE, so the Basel Agency for Sustainable Energy. So we are a foundation, non-profit organization that was founded 20 years ago by the Swiss government and the UN Environment Program. And our focus really for the past 20 years have been always to develop business models, financial strategies to accelerate investments in sustainable developments, energy efficiency, and renewable technologies in general. So we've been working in projects from solar panels to electric buses. And for the past 3 years, we actually accelerated our efforts in the sector of efficient cooling through various partnerships with the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program, so-called KCEP, which is a philanthropy under ClimateWorks based in California. And so in 2018, we launched what we call the Cooling as a Service initiative, aims really to accelerate the adaptation of more efficient cooling systems through the use of this innovative business model. So before I jump into explaining what is the model, some figures that you also saw in the video you just seen is actually cooling. Why did we focus on cooling? Is cooling represents today about 10% of global energy consumption. So cooling is really at the backbone of many, many industries. And this is represented to triple in the next 30 years. So reaching 30% of global energy consumption, which is the equivalent of the electricity use of China today. So the issue is that this, of course, is linked to something we cannot slow down. So it's related to population growth, temperatures increase, but also GDP growth across the world. So people get access to cooling technologies worldwide. But the issue is that many businesses across the world, they engage with technologies that are about 40 to 60% less energy efficient than the best technologies they have available in their markets. So this represents, of course, a huge risk on the climate, but as well on the grid. And like was presented by a colleague of earlier on the panel, inefficiency in energy consumption is also slowing down adaptation for renewable energies. So the importance of going for energy efficient cooling devices is very important. And so what we see here is actually in the next 30 years, there is a market opportunity of $6.9 trillion to be invested in better cooling technologies on the market. So the opportunities are really, really strong for good green investments. Now, if we look at the systems being installed worldwide, what we notice is that energy efficient systems are, of course, cheaper over the long run. So typically about 90% of the costs are related to operation and maintenance. So there is large saving potentials with short payback periods if you go with the technologies which are more energy efficient. However, what we see is that businesses overall, they don't do that, and they rather go with less energy efficient systems. So the core reasons behind this, what we realized doing a market analysis at BASE, is that over and over there are key market barriers that enter that really creates that market behavior. The first one is, of course, the better systems out there are more expensive. And a lot of businesses, they don't have the cash available for the higher upfront investments of such technologies. The second very important point is the lack of trust in the performance and the technology. So there is a high risk involved in purchasing equipment that you're not familiar with, whether it is on maintenance, breakdowns, logistic times, etc. And of course, in general, businesses are also having a focus on their core investments short time into their businesses, so they don't really prioritize investments in energy efficient cooling. So to tackle these market barriers, we created the cooling as a service model, which what it is really, it's shifting from selling an equipment to selling a service. The servitization, what is called servitization business model, is not something new. So actually what you see here is a variety of equipments related to energy consumption equipments, which have been engaging in the servitization model. So a very famous one is the printing machines of Xerox, which today, as everybody knows, corporates typically, they don't purchase printing machines, but they pay per amount of papers that they print. One which airports are very familiar with, but not everybody knows, is the aircraft engines. So the company Rolls-Royce is actually having a model of power by the hour, which airlines pay per amount of hours that the airlines fly their engines. Now, a very famous one is the servitization model applied in the solar industries. So what is called the power purchase agreement, so PPAs, really enabled solar PVs to grow drastically in the US market and globally. And now what we see is that other markets are also getting familiar with that model, which, for instance, Volvo is also renting their cars by the hour for consumers. And Philips made a new entity called Signify, and they also sell light by the hour. In fact, you have the airport of Amsterdam called Schiphol, which retrofitted their entire lighting system with a new model of light as a service and with Signify. And so what we see really is that for the air conditioning technologies, we are really in the brink of a revolution. So we've been working now 2 years in the market implementing this model, and we see the huge potential it has and the benefits for the various stakeholders involved in this model. So actually, back in 2019, we presented the model to the Global Innovation Lab for Climate Finance, which is actually, so the Global Innovation Lab, for those who don't know, is a very reputable group of institutions that is represented with investors, governments of private sector, development banks, but also philanthropies, who gather together to endorse models that they believe have a huge impact. And so here, cooling as a service was selected among 250 different applications as one of the most innovative, actionable, and scalable financial instruments of 2019. So the way it works is quite simple, actually. So the customers, they pay for the cooling service per unit of cooling consumed instead of investing in the equipment, while the technology provider owns the equipment, maintains it, and covers all of the operational costs, including electricity and water, which is very important because since they pay the electricity and the water, this means that the provider has in its own interest to install the equipment with the highest efficiency, as well as to offer excellent preventive maintenance to reduce the cost to deliver this service. So what used to be really a capital expense is becoming more of an operational expense for building owners, and cooling as a service encourage the use of more efficient cooling because the overall cost of the service becomes much lower for those technologies that have the lower operating cost. So the model includes, of course, different financial structures, which we developed with investment companies to enable the recapitalization of service providers to bring that equipment to their customers as a service. Just this slide here is to compare the model with two other models that are often confused with cooling as a service, but they are strong differentiators. So the first one is what is called the guarantee savings or energy performance contracting. Here, typically, customers and a technical provider agree on a certain set of savings to be achieved based on a certain consumption. And this, unfortunately, it's a model that has been implemented for some years, but it's always facing a lot of friction between the technical provider and the customer at the end of each year, because they try to compare how much savings have been really achieved, and if more savings have been achieved than planned, then there is always kind of an argument, how do they share these savings? Whereas really on cooling as a service, it's a fixed price per amount of cooling consumed, and there is no surprise for either party. Then the second model is district cooling, which of course is the best in its kind. So it's a highly efficient and scalable system. But the problem there is that you need large infrastructures and large investments. So if you're, let's say, an airport that is looking to grow your infrastructure with 1 or 2 buildings, then you're a little bit blocked. Similarly, if you're a hotel that has one chiller system but wants to expand your chiller system for growing your hotel, again, district cooling is not an option, right? So in cooling as a service, who are the different actors involved? You have from one side, of course, the cooling users, you have the technology providers, and the banks and the investors that are there only to back up the project of the technology provider. So for each stakeholder, what is the advantages? When you look at the users, is of course the no capital expenditure upfront, so there is no investment needed upfront. There is the direct access to reduce operating expenses and also to basically a greener operation. There is a service of the system that is completely off balance. So as a customer, you don't have anymore to worry about when is your system going to need to be maintained. You need to maybe optimize your operation costs related to maintenance. This is all taken care of from the technology provider. And as a customer, you pay a flat fee per month for amount of consumption that you do. So of course, related to that, there is no more performance risks. So this is directly on the table of the technology provider. And as an end customer, you can really focus on your core business and managing your cash flows. For the technology provider, of course, there is also a lot of advantages to get involved with this model. The first is, as a technology provider, you're the only one who knows very well how your system is performing and how it can be optimized. So you can really deploy the full potential of your technology for your customers. The second part is that you can increase the demand of energy efficient solutions, because suddenly, whichever technology innovation you have in your pipeline, you can go and implement it in your systems that are running, and you don't need to wait for hours of operations to be able to convince customers to buy your system. So you increase your energy efficiency, you can increase your margins, and at the same time, your customer is happy because he's not paying more or less, and he's being himself greener as well. And of course, as a technology provider, which is very important, you need to be able to predict your revenue streams, which is also something very interesting for the investors being involved in such projects. With regards to the investors, for them, what is very interesting in such opportunities is first the chance to place funding for green projects. They become the front runner in what is becoming really a global trend in investments of equipments. And thirdly, they have the opportunity to invest into assets that are really generating cash flows. And lastly, what is interesting in this model is that, of course, it's innovative from the perspective of between the technology provider and the end user, but the investment taking part between the investor and the technology provider is allowing for diverse funding structures, which are very stable in the markets. So as an NGO, where have we been really active in the Cooling as a Service initiative? We acted on these 4 pillars that you see here, which I will dig deeper in a second. So the first one is the development of tools, what we call the Cooling as a Service toolkit. So what we realized is for a lot of companies out there, it's very challenging for them to actually engage in such a new model because they see a huge amount of risk and time to be involved in developing the right contracts, the right pricing scheme, and the right documentation for their customers, but also inside for their organization. So what we've been doing is we've been developing a standardized Cooling as a Service contract and as well a business model so that these technology providers can take these tools and really accelerate their way forward to adopt the model. And as well, we've been creating a set of explanatory documentation that they can adapt to their customers and to their organizations internally. Now, these tools were developed together with pilot projects that we've been running across the globe. So we've been selecting the geographies and the industries in a variety of different formats on purpose to see how the model is performing in these different situations. So for instance, we have in the Caribbean and Latin America more industrial and commercial applications with large real estate buildings, hotels, and buildings that are larger. While if you look at in Africa, we have both types of applications. So cold storage, which are more off-grid applications in agriculture, and as well industrial and commercial. While in India and Singapore, we again have a mixture of the 2 categories, which there was for us particularly interesting to see how the contract needs to be modified in different countries according to different regulations, but as well how the pricing model needs to be adapted to take into account different factors of investor risks, to taxes, to also the equipment profile, right? So, and thirdly, what we've been creating is the Cooling as a Service Alliance. So for us, that part was extremely important because it helped us to create trust in the markets. So here what you have in front of you is all of the supporting partners that are today actively supporting the implementation of Cooling as a Service. So as you see, there are some of the market leaders like Daikin, Train, Carrier, and so on, but also smaller ones, which have been particularly successful in running up towards adopting the model internally. And additionally, we have as well, of course, our outreach partners, which the World Green Building Council is part of. And they are helping us a lot into reaching out to end customers, building owners, real estate owners, to really raise knowledge of the opportunity that is behind getting involved in the servitization business and model within the cooling industry. And lastly, but not least, we've been making a lot of work to raise awareness on this model, which includes workshops, webinars, articles, case studies, and matchmaking events. So for instance, here you have some of the articles that have come out mentioning cooling as a service. So we were featured in The Economist, but also the UK government mentioned the strong opportunity to get involved with that model. Sustainable Energy for All as well mentioned us, and many thanks as well for the World Green Building Council for backing up this model and the opportunity it has on the market. So, and as I mentioned, so for instance, here you have two of the several case studies that we have written down. So here on the left, you have a project that was run by an investment firm called MGM Innova Group in Colombia, whereby they retrofitted an entire building of more than 100 floors with a new chiller system. And the result was actually more than 440,000 kilograms of CO2 saved per year, and several also gigawatts of energy saved per year. So actually the details of the case study is also available on our website. And on the right, you have here an industrial. So it's a citrus farm in the agriculture industry. And there they retrofitted their plant again with ammonia. So a new system using ammonia as a chiller system. And the plant was enabled to be fully powered by solar energy. So again, a very interesting transition, allowing for the customer to engage with a new system, a new technology where they have absolutely no knowledge of, but they allow for the technology provider to keep ownership and also to keep the responsibility of running the equipment safely. And here, this is another example of what we've been doing to disseminate news on the model. So we partnered with a company called Cold Hubs in Nigeria that is providing cooling as a service for off-grid refrigeration for agriculture. And there again, the model was extremely efficiently applied. So what we see is that it enabled for a country which initially had markets with 50% waste of food in agriculture due to lack of refrigeration and time to market struggle, to increase, let's say, savings by 50% in waste, and as well to enable farmers to increase, of course, their wage by 50%. Here, I take the opportunity actually to mention an event that is coming up on the 1st of December, which is part of this effort to disseminate information on how cooling as a service is working and how it's performing in various industries. So the event is happening on the 1st of December. It's starting at 9 a.m. Central European time, but it's running up until late at night, so around 8:30 p.m. in the evening, whereby we're going to be covering different of the companies that have been applying cooling as a service, including in Latin America, where if you log in and you register, you will have the opportunity to ask questions to the technology providers, to the investors, but as well to people that are actively looking to adopt the model. So with this, maybe I'll stop the presentation and you have my details here, and I'll let the floor for future questions afterwards.
Thank you, Dimitri, so much for your presentation and for all the information you just shared. It's great to have you here joining us. And now I want to finish the agenda for today with a session of a panel of discussion led by Victoria Burrows from World GBC. Let me just briefly share my screen. So Victoria will be inviting also Cesar, Dimitris, Emma, and Alonso to join the discussion. And we'll be having a 30 minutes discussion Q&A, and that will be the final part of our session for today. Thank you. Joining us, Victoria.
Thank you, Juanita. Thank you. Do we have all our speakers back? Do we still have Emma? We do. Great. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Guido, I think we're missing Guido, if he's still around. It has turned dark since I last saw you. Good evening from me from France, in a very rural part of the French countryside, but I'm very happy to have spent this time learning from all of these very distinguished panelists about their experiences and how they are playing a role in the decarbonization of our sector. So thank you all for all your hard work. I have lots of questions. And I think I had a question that I was going to pose to both Cesar and Guido. So I think, Cesar, you pull the short straw. And I have to just come to you and ask you, do we have you? Cesar, are you on camera and available? Or maybe I should go to someone else who's here. Let's start with Emma. Hi, Emma. Thank you for your presentation on Lead Zero. Fantastic to know that it is having such a good response, that there are buildings being certified to Lead Zero in Latin America and within the US. I have a question that I get asked a lot, actually, and I'm not sure if you covered it in your presentation already, but if you can achieve Lead Zero in a building, I know there's a prerequisite to have a certification of LEED, but do you have to achieve a particular level of LEED, or can Lead Zero be applied if you have achieved any of the certification levels?
Great question. That's one we get pretty frequently as well. Lead Zero is available to a project that has achieved any certification level.
I have to say, I'm really looking forward to when there is loads, hundreds and thousands of buildings certified to Lead Zero. And because there is that approach that you can achieve any certification level before you apply Lead Zero, I think it will have a huge contribution to the idea that any building can achieve zero performance, and that it doesn't need to have a very high price tag associated with it. How have you seen that applied to the buildings that are achieving Lead Zero so far?
Yeah, so when we were developing the Lead Zero program, we thought critically about the goals of the program. And as I had mentioned, we want to use this as an opportunity to recognize leaders, but also inspire greater achievement of net zero. And it's an operational certification, so it's mostly an accounting exercise, as you all saw. The carbon balance, the energy balance, and the water balance are all sort of pass-fail metrics. So if you have your data, if you're tracking, you understand how you're consuming resources, it's fairly simple to understand how you're offsetting those resources via renewable energy generation, for example, or alternative water sources or water return to the source. So we, as an operational certification, wanted to make this available to many building projects. Existing buildings have less, capital, have less resources to totally retrofit or pursue a holistic certification. So Lead Zero is really intended to be a streamlined, simplified, and accessible program. And we're starting to see slow momentum. I think perhaps the global pandemic might have slowed a couple things down, but we're starting to see more projects pick up and register for the program, which is really exciting.
Excellent. Well, we will keep an eye on that progress. So thank you very much for sharing, and hopefully there will be many more LEED Zero buildings in the future. I have another question for you, which I'll come to if we have time. But I'll move on to maybe Alonso. Is it okay, Alonso, if I ask you a question in English?
Yes, please
because
go
I
ahead.
cannot speak. Great. Good stuff. So we have a question, I think, from the audience about how the work with how you found the work working with the public sector, and how they've received some of the innovative ideas that you've presented on social housing at first. I mean, we heard from Guido how the association in Brazil is embracing in school buildings. So how about for social housing? How have they been receptive to these ideas?
Thank you for the question. Again, the idea or the reason why it's been very successful working with the authorities and the government is because within the community, we not only build the houses, but we also provide social, health, educational infrastructure. So obviously that's also an advantage for the communities and for the government. When you're donating clinics and hospitals, you're decreasing the burden on the government. You're facilitating the actions, because it's easier for us to build it than for the regular process for the approval of hospital within the authorities. So there's also an advantage. So that has been very useful. On the other hand, when we're talking about government agencies such as Infonavit or Sociedad Hipotecaria Federal, which are basically financial institutions, they are very aligned with the objective of efficient housing. They understand the impact that has, and it's not only energy, it's also water. You know, in Mexico, we actually have challenges on procurement of water, so that's also very key. Therefore, the actions that we're carrying out through our energy and water efficient homes fits perfectly with the expectations of these government entities, which are substantial financial institutions providing the mortgages for the segments that we're selling those homes into.
And often we find that the concepts of social housing and high performance buildings, you know, in sort of people's minds, that they don't go very well together because they immediately think of high costs, but actually the operation or the opportunity to manage or have lower operational costs for those particularly homes is also really important to sustain those communities.
Absolutely, you nailed it on the head. Actually, the key aspect of efficient housing, efficient water for homes is the price. It's making it affordable and accessible to most of the population. Anybody can build a net zero energy home. The problem is the cost, as you mentioned, because it's going to take a lot of money. It's not going to be accessible for most people. The success of making this a reality is making it affordable and reachable and quality-based, because again, we cannot compromise on the quality of materials. When you see the EDGE certification, our embodied energy in materials, it's substantial. It's 800,000 gigajoules, which is significant, especially for thermal purposes. So having the ability of building these houses on an affordable manner that have this type of impact, not only in the energy and in the water, but also socially through the community model, it's key.
And to just extend on that point a bit, what we're often asked about is the business case, and it was touched on a little bit by Guido earlier. But sometimes it's not just about the financial business case, right? These homes are more comfortable. You're able to enjoy a better indoor quality of life as well.
Correct. It's the entire package, right? I mean, you're getting a baseball park, you're getting a running track, you're getting, you know, a pet-friendly area. It's hard to get that in certain segments. I mean, not all developments can provide you that type of services at those pricing points, and that has to be considered. So again, it's getting everything together and properly aligned within that business model that guarantees a shared value. These guys are not going to stop paying their mortgage. They're happy with their homes. They're not going to give you the keys and run away. On the contrary, they're thinking about it long term. So that actually translates into happy banks, non-delinquent mortgages, long-term business, further support so that it self-fulfills and fits back into more communities of this style, which impact the communities.
That's really great, Alonso. I think that the social value benefits and impact of these high performance buildings absolutely shouldn't be underestimated. So thank you for your work and for sharing your experiences with us here today. Okay, I'm still not sure if we have Cesar. I think we're waiting for him to come and join us. He might be having some audio issues, so we'll just we will wait to see if he can join us. But in the meantime, I will ask Demetrius a question. This is actually quite timely because I was doing some research earlier for a paper that I'm writing, and I was comparing some of the statistics on the impact of the built environment in 2020 to 2010, and we're sort of now looking ahead to 2030 and really what the future holds for us and why it's compelling to act now. You've outlined a really compelling model there, and it sounds like there's fantastic potential and lots of uptake, which is great. I was reading that in the past 10 years, energy intensity for space heating in buildings and lighting is reducing or has reduced, which, despite the increase in floor area that we are continuing to build, that's good news for us because the heating and lighting systems are becoming more efficient, homes are becoming more efficient, buildings, but cooling needs is on the increase. So how do you see that as playing out into the future, given these new business models that we're starting to see in the market?
Yeah, great question. I mean, indeed, it's that's also the statistics that we see. So there is a big increase being planned in cooling. So there is the famous phrase, how do you cool a warming world, right? Efficiently. And efficiency is a huge important factor. From one side, efficiency, but as well the type of technology that is being used. And that goes from the kind of refrigerant that is being implemented. So in some regions, for instance, some countries, typically they have a hard time to change their logistics to be able to change really what type of technologies are being sold to the end customer. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, whereby even if the customer wants to go with something more efficient, he can't, because there is not the market for him to access it. So instead, if we really make a shift business-wise that makes sense for the technology provider to make that step towards making sure that the better technology is available, then there is really a cash incentive to do that. And so that's a little bit the, I don't know if it answers kind of the question, but it's what we see is of key importance. So as soon as you bring, let's say, the financial opportunity for technical providers to make that shift, and it overcomes the risk as well of them bringing the technology, then it starts making sense. And of course here, that's why it's very important for technology providers to work hand in hand with investors, so that they can hedge the risk of providing that equipment as a service to their end customers.
Sure, I guess the idea is for us to take the lessons of what we've seen from addressing heating demand to make sure that we are building in the new buildings that we're creating this capacity for reduced cooling demand and efficient operations, so that we can see that trend reversing faster than we did for heating.
Yes, that is a very valid point. And also what we see is, so you're comparing heating and cooling, and a lot of the buildings we have today, they have actually the opportunity to use one device that does the two. And typically what we see is that a lot of buildings, they have these two devices separate. Because again, it's not owned by the technology provider, so it's the building owner that adapts. It doesn't have, let's say, the knowledge of how to use a system that combines the two together. And so consumption, again, with cooling rises drastically. So especially if you have these buildings made of glass, I mean, these are absolutely terrible for cooling purposes, right? So they constantly need to be cool. So again, it's an opportunity to, like you say, to look at what has been done on heating and bring that to the cooling sector, but also technology speaking, to combine the two.
Yes, absolutely. Good. Okay. Right. We're going to try and bring Caesar in. I'm going to attempt to turn off my camera and see if that allows Caesar onto the platform, because I have lots of questions for him. So let's just try that for 1 second. And if not, we'll come back to Emma. Bear with me. Okay. Can you try, Caesar, to turn on your, to come onto the platform?
Yep. Do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent, but you don't get to see me.
No, I'm afraid not.
I believe we got audio. That's okay. Thank you.
We saw you earlier, and we're here for your mind, if you don't mind me saying. So we can keep going.
Right.
Okay, Caesar. So I have lots of questions here for you. And I wanted to sort of ask both you and Guido, you both sort of set out this incredibly optimistic picture of achieving net zero, both within your own organizations and how you treat the concept and bring it into your clients. I've got sort of two opening questions. First of all, it seems like a complete no-brainer. So how is it that how receptive are your clients to this and what is it that you find gives them that light bulb moment for them to really help to embrace the concepts of net zero?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, as a starter, internally, for us, definitely was something we just had to do. It was in our plans, of course, leading the way by example and walking the talk. And so that aligned beautifully, basically, because it was in our mission, this kind of commitment to go for net zero carbon. So that was just fantastic. It was all the lines were in the right place, and we were so happy. And thank you so much, Vic, for helping us and being very supportive. So we were just really eager, and we are really excited up to now. And of course, this excitement will go on for long in our firm. But then again, as you mentioned, our potential, in our case, being a consultancy firm, well, it's not much relying on our own assets. Say a couple of offices in the country or anywhere doesn't mean too much in absolute terms. But the great thing is our clients, that they own large portfolio of real estate assets. They can have a huge impact. And the great thing is that as we speak now of this concept of zero carbon, you perceive much more positive reception. There's this awareness. I think climate change has played its role in penetrating, say, the language and the interest of the different stakeholders in our sector. So, to be honest, as we committed with advancing net zero building commitments from the World GDC, and as we promised, and as we will continue to do so, we approached our clients with this new renovated speech and concepts. And I can tell you, it's very different, the response and the much intense eagerness from the clients as it was like 2 or 3 years before. We were sending, I would say, the basic contents some years ago, but the response was very different. It was like, there was no sense of urgency. It was like, okay, this can wait. It sounds somewhat abstract issue. But now, and I wouldn't be able to tell particularly when or how, but it got really into the stream and into the veins of many of our clients, and I'm very happily with the top clients with more interest and more capacity to make change. And when they hear about this proposal of, say, let's go for a net zero building, and they say, okay, now rings a bell. But the great thing is and my portfolio, how can we scale it up? Why not my other dozens or hundreds of buildings? And those kind of words, those kind of reactions, we didn't have, like, at least in my case, like 5 years ago. So this momentum is something that we should harness and we should multiply as soon as possible.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I'm curious about that first step. So Guido mentioned that the thing that really got the institution for the schools institution excited about embracing net zero was that graph that showed them the data, right? That showed them how their schools compare to each other in terms of performance. So if you are someone who's attending this session today and you're interested in net zero and want to know where to start, how is it that they can take their energy bill, which usually people are just interested in how much it's going to cost them, and really understand what their energy bill is telling them about how their buildings are performing?
Yeah, I think that's a very quick and easy step, and probably also Dimitris can jump in here. Basically, well, and Alonso and Emma, please. Yeah, because as you mentioned, it's step one into understanding the real impacts in your budget, in your wallet. What amount you're really spending, you usually don't realize that much that you're using from your total budget into cooling, for instance, or lighting, energy efficiency as a whole. So basically, my recommendation here will be that any interested person starts just by addressing and collecting that simple invoices that you receive monthly, and that you analyze where that's coming from. Probably you might need a little instrumentation, but I don't think it will be that much of a complication to start analyzing where are your main consumptions, your main concept for energy consumption coming from. And quickly you can have this difference that Guido showed, that you have in the upper side of the curve, you have a lot of money being wasted just by not doing some basic performance changes, just adapting. Even if you get to read properly your electricity bill, you will realize that you can optimize, say, the factor of efficiency as long as you program properly your loads. So even without spending a single dollar, just by changing habits or the period of operation of some of your services, you will find immediate savings. So my advice will be, go for that low-hanging fruit immediately. You will get motivated. You will make the case for your CFO or for your client, and things will move on from there.
Oh, well, I'm motivated, Cesar. I wish I had a portfolio of buildings to apply this to. So thank you. Alonso, I wonder if you happen to know if there is benchmark data available, so that once you understand what your energy bill is and what your energy consumption is, therefore, how you can compare that to your competitors, maybe, or buildings of the same type in your city or your area, so that you can understand if you're performing well or you could do better.
Absolutely. Actually, we do have a ton of data and measurements. Just as background, Vinta is one of the few home builders that actually has an R&D department. It's called Intelligence. And we have done substantial work on that aspect. I'm going to touch on something that Dimitri and Cesar just mentioned. But for example, the surrounding where you're going to build the home, it's key. Depending on where you're building, whether it's in the north and the south, if it's desert, if it's tropic, if it's mild, the type of construction, the type of materials that you use is paramount for energy efficiency, for temperature efficiency. We did an analysis, we actually participated in an initiative for net zero energy, and we realized that the consumption of energy was mostly from AC. So if you can maintain the home mild for X period of time, the consumption of energy is going to decrease notably. And that's going to decrease your GHG emission ratio. And to be able to do that, you depend on the surrounding. So for example, when we build homes near Cancun, we have certain developments there. The type of materials that we have to use, type of slab, the coating that we have to put on the walls, and additionally, and this is very important, Dimitri touched on it earlier, the windows. You can have these very nice buildings all made of glass, but it's not efficient. And one of the things that we have been doing is the coating on the windows so that temperature within the buildings remains steady, so that there is less use of energy for cooling, or in places where it's Arctic and at night it gets really cold, you can keep it warm without drawing excess energy, which increases GHG emissions. So yes, we have a ton of data. We know how we're applying it. The use of telemetry is key. If you cannot measure it, you cannot fix it. So those are key elements that we have to use that have helped us develop these energy efficient homes. And that's how we have been able to achieve almost 4,000 EDGE certified homes throughout our lifespan.
Excellent. And Alonso, can I ask you, you mentioned the data there about that relates to building performance, but do you also capture the data on the embodied emissions?
Yes, actually those, you mentioned about the baselines. So we use EDGE certification. Yeah. IFC has a baseline data, which they use to compare the efficiency of the buildings, of the dwellings, whether it's homes or other edifications. So that's the one that we basically align with. It's important to mention, we know that there's LEED certifications, but since we've been working with the IFC, we have not only undertaken their EDGE certification, we have also used their IFC performance standards. So the advantage of having developing financial institutions, it has also strengthened our corporate governance, our ESG metrics, and as you can see, everything is connected so that we can lead to these energy efficient homes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask the organizers how much time I've got, because I could keep going all night. So if someone could let me know how we're doing for time and if we need to wrap up, I might just ask one more question to Emma, and maybe we can finish there. But Emma, we have just had World Green Building Week at World Green Building Council. It was our most successful ever. Our Act on Climate campaign, all about sort of pushing the market towards net zero buildings and kind of really championing for this really high level of performance. And we were really excited to see the statement from Mahesh, the CEO of the US Green Building Council, about LEED positive, about the requirement for or the hope and the sort of future roadmap for LEED. And I think it's fantastic to be able to set those longer term timelines so that the industry and policymakers can see how we're gearing up towards delivering these buildings. And I think ultimately that will really help with the business case. And I think the statement was that there'll be a requirement for new construction buildings being certified under LEED to be LEED positive from 2025, and for all buildings that are existing that are being certified as LEED to be LEED positive by 2050, which is just a wonderful timeframe. So, you know, a wonderful level of ambition to be setting. So I wondered if you could maybe share a little bit about that announcement before we wrap up today's event.
Of course, and thank you for asking. This has been the subject of our work over the past year, and we've been collaborating closely with our networks of LEED committee members, the volunteer professionals who help us develop the rating system to further define what we mean by LEED positive. So what does a LEED positive project look like in terms of energy, water, materials, you know, et cetera, usage? There will be more information to share, I would say, with this year's Green Build Conference, which is taking place next month virtually. Mahesh usually shares some exciting announcements, and I'm sure this year he'll be putting a finer point on our vision for LEED positive. From my perspective, when we say LEED positive, that's sort of synonymous with the idea of a building that is built to contribute to a regenerative, sustainable future. So you can think of it as the next level beyond platinum. And we're working with our LEED committees now to sort of further define that and put in place the requirements that LEED positive projects will need to meet in order to achieve that designation. But just from what was shared, you know, earlier this year, basically, as Victoria mentioned, LEED positive targets for energy and carbon reduction will really ask new construction projects to go further and raise the bar on the energy efficiency targets that they're setting, the renewable energy procurement that they're doing, as well as reductions in embodied carbon that we know are so critical. And then we'll also have similar goals and milestones for existing buildings and what that would look like from a LEED positive perspective. I will say the LEED version 4.1 rating system, which we're working on developing now and looking to bring through the public comment and ballot process next year with USGBC membership, puts in place or introduces a lot of the really important concepts that we think will be critical to realize that vision for LEED positive. So just as an example, in the energy and atmosphere credit category in the LEED version 4.1 rating system, we've significantly increased the stringency of our requirements for energy efficiency. We have totally revamped our criteria for renewable energy procurement in a way that mirrors or reflects that hierarchy for renewable energy that I spoke about earlier today. And then also we have this really interesting credit called grid harmonization that directly addresses the role that buildings have to play in supporting grid scale or utility scale decarbonization efforts via peak load management, load shifting, load shaping, thermal storage, the variety of technologies that are available there to help project teams reduce their strain on the grid. So I would just encourage you all to take a look at the version 4.1 rating system. I think that is setting the foundation for our future work on LEED positive. Thanks, Victoria.
Excellent. Thank you for that very comprehensive answer, Emma. I would also like to give a shout out to the Green Building Council of Australia, who next week are launching a major update to their Green Star rating tool, which will require very soon all 6-star rated buildings to be carbon positive. So I think this is a fantastic trend that we're seeing within the Green Building Rating System and the World Green Building Council Network, and the direction of travel for and the vision that we're setting for buildings to be certified in the future. So a very exciting time to be part of this movement, and a huge thank you to all of our speakers from today, sharing how you're contributing towards our vision of total decarbonization of the sector. So with that, I think I'll hand over to you, Juanita, to close us out for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all of our speakers for joining us in this full agenda with great examples, projects, and initiatives for net zero carbon buildings. I really want to give you a big thank you for your time, your insights, and for being so thoughtful with sharing all of your knowledge. I'm going to switch to Spanish. Gracias a todos los participantes del día de hoy. Un agradecimiento muy, muy especial al Guatemala Green Building Council por ser la sombrilla de este evento, por permitirnos estar dentro de América Sostenible y tener la participación de todas las personas que estuvieron inscritas y que se sumaron a esta iniciativa. Muchas gracias. Estaremos compartiendo más contenido con todas las personas que se registraron a nuestra sesión del día de hoy. Y bueno, pues gracias a todos por su tiempo, por su interés y por ser unos miembros activos de este movimiento de construcción sostenible en el mundo. Muchísimas gracias y thank you all for joining again. Feliz resto de día para todos.